forth a lot of this rhetoric that the Black family is broken and so on and so forth, and that the marriage is going to save that. First of all, marriage is a capitalist construct. Marriage is not necessarily about love. Partnership is about love. So when you talk about marriage, in what context are you talking about marriage? Easily have children with a friend, and that is still family, and he will be the father of my child, and we can co-parent that child if I decide. And that is still building up the Black community. Just because, oh no, I don't need to be married to start a family. I do need a partner, and I don't have to marry that person. And that partner could also be a partner. A lot of more progressive Black women are going forth trying to build the community in a way that's non-conventional, that isn't specifically rooted in white supremacist idealisms. Doesn't mean that we want to break up the Black family and the Black community. No, the opposite. We are looking for healthier ways that build community, and sometimes those ways are not conventional. So to sit there and say that, oh, because we are unconventional, we are demonic or we are satanic, that doesn't make any sense. So finding ways to build community and to build family in community. So again, the nuclear family is an individualistic white supremacist structure, and it's not based on community. So why are we relegating the saving of the Black community in individualism and the nuclear family? That doesn't make any sense.
Hey everybody, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. So, y'all, here we go again. Remember what I mentioned a few weeks ago? Why I believe in particular there's some women out there who are downplaying the importance of marriage because they know they can't get married. And I wonder if this is one of those situations. I just wonder. But even if it's not, let's just assume she's a woman who legitimately does not think marriage is good or it's good for her. Her explanation that marriage is a white supremacist or a capitalistic construct is ahistorical. Marriage has existed for like thousands of years across all cultures in different economic setups and in different sociological setups. So, no, marriage is not a result of capitalism. Now, marriage may look different under a capitalistic structure, but that it's just not true. Like, I just think I don't understand this consistent need to try to downplay the importance of marriage when it's literally been the thing that different societies have done, like I said, for thousands of years. So no, marriage is not a capitalistic thing, and no, it's not white supremacist. Okay, and then her other argument that the current setup, marriage, this current society is set up by white folks, and it is basically incongruent with the Black family. That's essentially what she's saying. So, okay, let's just assume that's true. The answer is not to go around and create a whole bunch of different single mothers, because here's another issue with this argument, in my humble opinion. What she's describing, it may sound nice and it may sound very kumbaya and it may sound very progressive, but it's theoretical at best. There is no data or information. There is nothing in history that has ever shown us that having a culture where people do not commit, like legally, where marriage is not there, where there is not a clear family structure, there is no evidence to suggest that that would ever work. And so this new progressive model of trying new things and not being beholden to old traditional norms, it's theoretical. Like, it sounds cute, but we'd literally be making stuff up. And the evidence up to this point of what it looks like when people are cohabitating or, single mothers here, father over there, like, the data already isn't all that good. So I'm like, if we're already going down a path and the results don't seem to be that great, why would we continue down that path? Also, if the argument is, okay, you want to do something that is closer to Black culture or more closer to the roots of Black or African culture, again, there is no African or Black society out there that had baby mama culture or that even had single parent or cohabitating culture. Marriages were still happening, even if you understand polygamy and how that works. Right? There were still marriages. The women were still taken care of. The entire structure was different. It was a community-based structure. It was not individualistic. Yeah, individualism is not a construct of black or African people. Like, I understand where she's coming from when she says that individualism is very much a Western ideal, but the answer is not to disregard a family structure or system that has been in existence since the beginning of time. Like, that's not that's not the answer. And again, for those who are trying to be more in touch with their black or African roots, if she's that person, uh, that is baby mama culture, single parent cohabitating culture is not and has never really been an aspect of a thriving black or African society. Like, it's just not. So to me, no matter how you look at it, if you want to look at it through a Western lens, if you want to look at it through a black or African lens, it just doesn't work because I'm like, not only is there not any evidence to show that this has ever worked, what we have seen up to this point, as we've seen culture progress in this way, the results aren't really all that good. They're not all that good. And again, if marriages have been here literally for thousands of years across cultures, across different ethnic groups, like marriage has been the one thing to a certain extent. Marriage and the family structure has been the one thing that almost all cultures can agree on. Now there's different ways that it's expressed, but that's one thing that you can find in every culture. If every culture can essentially agree that it's important and has been important for thousands of years, why all of a sudden do we need to undo it? Why undo it? And to me, the blatant attack against something that not only is God given, but God ordained and God created, to me, I think it's very detrimental. And I think it's just foolish. But that's what I think. Just let it be clear. This, in my humble opinion, this is why societies had concubines and they had wives. In societies there was literally a difference. They were different classes of women, those who were wives and then those who served the wives. And I'm not saying that a woman doesn't necessarily have value as a human being if she was a concubine, but in the cultural structure, in even traditional structures, you had wives and you had concubines, those who were the servants or the handmaidens of wives. And I think, as even though society has progressed, I think we are seeing already today that there is a distinction. There's a distinction in mentality and utility, and there's a distinction in, quite frankly, desire. And this is why, yeah, I don't believe everybody is meant to be a wife, or I don't believe everybody needs to be a wife. I understand that. But the answer, I don't think, is to now undermine the importance of something that has been in existence since the beginning of human history. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. But what do you think? Do you agree or do you disagree? Let me know. Also, be sure to check out my How to Be a Wife series, where we discuss the journey towards becoming a virtuous woman and wife in the midst of a culture that encourages 304s. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Thank you so much for listening. If you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.
Ladies, 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 the only time having a boyfriend is worth it is when he is able to fully support. Ladies, 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 the only time having a boyfriend is worth it is when he is able to fully support you and pay all your bills. I said it, and I'll say it again. The only time a man who is your boyfriend, he's not your husband, if you're gonna be a girlfriend to someone, he needs to be paying all your bills. Otherwise, why is he there? What is his purpose? If he's not, he's just a boyfriend. Meaning, if he leaves you, and a boyfriend is not a legal title. If he leaves you and promises you marriage, leaves you with nothing, you get nothing. But if he's paying all your bills, you're able to save money, you're able to invest into businesses that you want to do. If he leaves you, you're leaving with something else at the end of it. But to date a guy and be someone's girlfriend for free, so he can promise you marriage, he can promise you marriage, Susie marriage, Melina marriage, Selena marriage, all while dating you. Being someone's girlfriend is not worth it, okay? No. If you're gonna be a girlfriend, he needs to be paying a bill or two. These bills are due. I'm not usually anyone's girlfriend, but I'll make that exception for you if you're willing to pay some bills. If you're willing to pay a bill or two. 24. I've never dated anyone. And before you speak, if you've ever been in a relationship, I don't want your fucking opinion. I don't want to hear your fucking opinion about how I need friendship and community and to love myself. I don't want to hear your fucking opinion. If you haven't dated anyone in 10 years plus, you can speak, but quietly. Don't speak too much. Now, my bitches that have never been in a relationship, no talking stages, no situationships, nothing, to the front. I want to hear your voices. Everyone else, be quiet or shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. I don't need love. I love myself. I don't need friends. I have friends and I love them and we're great. When I talk about things related to being single my whole life, like, God, the fucking shit that I get is so ridiculous. So I don't want to hear it unless you've also been single your whole life. Never dated anyone before, and honestly at this point I'm afraid to, because men are scary and evil. They're scary and evil. What if one day he wakes up and decides he hates me and wants to kill me? What if he has a secret group chat where he's racist about me to all of his friends? What if one day we have this beautiful family and he loses his job and he's like, actually, you know what, I'll kill myself and kill my entire family? Men are really scary. They're really scary and evil. Or what if he just pretends to like me so that he can have sex with me? What if he does that? What if he just pretends to like me so that he can have sex with one of my friends? I don't know. Men are scary and evil, and I want to be in a relationship, but I don't know if I'm sweating it that much when I realize that most men are evil. Or I've never been in a relationship before, and if you're gonna tell me to get a fucking makeover, shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! What do I look like changing myself for a fucking man? Do you think I wake up every day like, might as well get dressed and see if a man will like me today? Maybe I'll change my hair and maybe, just maybe, a man will finally fucking like me today. Do I look fucking dumb? And on that fucking note, actually, do you think, maybe you're just not feminine enough? Maybe you're too fucking aggressive? And do you want me to sit here and be demure and just like bring myself down just so a fucking man will like me? I'd rather be alone for the rest of my goddamn life than perform for men. Than to wake up every day thinking about what will attract a man. What can I change about myself so that a fucking man will want me? You need to look at your fucking self and conceptualize why you're thinking and think about your actions in your life and how you've changed your fucking life to attract a man. And maybe that's why you fucking hate yourself. And maybe that's why you keep telling people that have never been in a relationship before that they need to fucking change themselves. Because maybe it worked for you. And maybe, just maybe, you wake up every fucking day thinking about how you fucking hate yourself because you started doing this to change a man. You started doing your edges to change a fucking man. Putting this fucking outfit on to change a man, not speaking up about your fucking rights to change a man, and maybe when that man says something you don't fucking like, you keep your fucking mouth shut just so that you can fucking keep him and keep your bed warm at night because you're fucking afraid of being alone. I've been alone for so long, bitch. Men are completely decentered from my life, so why the fuck would I give a fuck about what a man thinks about me?
Listen, if I can go back and tell myself one thing, it would be don't get married. Run, bitch. Run fast. Stupid. That was dumb. We don't need to get married. Women in 2026, we don't need to get married. We can make money. And I feel for the propaganda. I'm not going to lie. Desiring marriage will be forever the biggest scam I ever fell for in my entire life. Okay? I would have still had my baby, but I wouldn't have got married. I would have just kept it at that. I would have been a baby mama. I would have gladly signed up to be a baby mama. There's no benefits. There's no benefits. Second thing I would tell myself, don't quit your job, you dumbass. Dare I say, you will not know who you're married to until you become financially dependent on them. That's when you'll really see. Okay? Stupid. And people try to warn me like, oh, you sure? My baby was in a NICU for 26 days. I got married while my baby was in the NICU. He knew what he was doing. He knew I was gonna be out of there. I wasn't even in the mental space to get married. Stupid. Divorce is so expensive. It's so expensive. By the grace of God, I was able to get a job right out of this marriage after not working for 5 years. That was nothing but God. That's how I knew God was on my side. That was crazy. Will I say, being married and leaving my husband has been the closest to me feeling like my life was possibly in danger. That was wild. These men are crazy. They are absolutely insane. When you marry them, not all of them, maybe y'all fucking found a unicorn. Before y'all get in my comments tussling, maybe you found a unicorn. And if you did, thank God. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 5 years. Okay? 5 years. I have a husband who some people would say is rich or has money. Okay? I will also say that I have had the pleasure and experience of hanging out and having married friends who are also stay-at-home moms behind all different races and backgrounds, and there's very few of us out there that aren't fucking drowning. Going back to work, I welcomed it. It was my pleasure to be here. Stupidest shit I ever did.
To realize more and more that baby showers are more prevalent in the Black community. We put a lot of emphasis on baby showers. We spend tens of thousands of dollars on these baby showers, fireworks and this and that, and it's almost like a mini wedding. But every single time we're at these baby showers, either the woman is by herself and she's doing it alone, or she's there with the guy but they're not married. That's typically the case. It's very rare that I see these extravagant baby showers between married couples. For some reason in our community, we have convinced ourselves that a baby is better than marriage. Like, it's okay to have a baby with your boyfriend. It's okay to have a lifelong commitment with your boyfriend, but you have to be prepared for marriage. You have to be in the right mind state for marriage. You have to be financially ready for marriage, when that couldn't be further from the truth. A baby is going to be around for the rest of your life. You're going to be connected to that other parent for the rest of your life. As much as you don't want to, you're going to be connected, because when you look at your baby, it's going to look like the other person. You're gonna be connected. So I don't think that we're afraid of commitment. It's just this weird brainwashing in our community to kind of keep families split, to keep broken homes going. Like, I feel like it's a whole nother conspiracy behind that, but that has to stop. Stop spending money on these baby showers and you're not married. Stop having babies if you're not even ready to be married. How are you ready to be a mom but you're not ready to be a wife? Like, what? Like, you can. My thing is, you can always opt out of a marriage. You cannot opt out of parenthood. That is not something you can opt out of.
All right. What's going on, everybody? Like, share, subscribe on the way in. Thanks for joining me on CP time. But I mean, y'all know the drill. Y'all know how it goes. Anyways, another last minute live. However, I did, touch upon this last week. I said, I am committed to getting through. I'm committed to getting through this topic. I have been talking about, over the last, I think, 2-3 weeks now, just this ongoing topic about why Black women continue to reveal why they're the least married, and just different challenges around just dating and relationships today, and specifically just the inability, it seems, for some Black women to really be able to find long-lasting love. And so I gave you guys quite a bit of receipts. I do want to do just a quick recap of what we actually went over, in some of the previous videos, just to bring you guys up to speed. And then I want to go over another viral post / article / think piece that I think is reflective of actually what's going on today. And in some ways is actually a continuation of, I think, honestly, I would argue is a lot of the propaganda and a lot of the misinformation that actually is keeping Black women, in my humble opinion, from being able to find the kind of love that they want. So that's what we're going to do. But again, like, share, subscribe on the way in. And okay, let's see if I can bring up some examples, you guys. Bear with me, getting things ready as we speak. I was kind of multitasking a bit. So, okay. So, when we talk, again, a little bit about Black women and marriage and relationships, and why it seems as if Black women specifically not only have a hard time finding marriage, why they have a hard time remaining married, and in most instances, why it just seems as if Black women have a hard time finding love in general, And so that's what I want to cover off a little bit. And actually, on that note, as we're having this conversation, let's see if I can find it. Let me see this other one. Sorry, I should have had this prepared, but I'm literally just being reminded of this other interview I saw from, yes, another interview that I saw actually from Tisha Campbell. And she talks about how she's never been loved. And I think this is a perfect continuation of this theme of Black women either finding a hard time getting love, finding a hard time finding solid marriages, and then even when they are in marriages, why it seems as if they aren't happy, aren't content, don't feel loved, like what's going on here. So I'm going to also show real quick this clip that I saw from Tisha Campbell, where she goes on to explain how she felt like she has never been loved. We have a lot to cover off today, but again, I'm just giving you guys some examples.
You with love in your life now.
Who? What'd you say?
Tisha, that was a very direct question.
I didn't hear you.
Where are you with love?
What? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the love for myself. I'm still unpacking all of that. I know that I love people. I just don't know if I'm loved back by people. That's a really hard statement to say.
Oof.
Let me tell you the story. So I was doing this thing with Shirley Ralph. It was called Diva Simply Singing, right? And on the show was Brenda Russell. Remember Brenda Russell?
Of course. Piano in the Dark.
She also wrote You Can Reach Me by Trailway, right? Get there if you can. And I asked her, I said, that song, I said, God, it's so beautiful.
I don't care how you get there. Just
get there if you can. I said, who were you talking about when you wrote that song? And she says, oh yeah, that's where people get it, misconstrued, because I wasn't talking about a person. I was talking about love itself. I've never been loved in my life. And then now I am here in this moment, kind of more understanding her words. I have loved, and I put my whole heart into it. I not only believe in the good of man, I also believed in marriage, commitment, all of the things. And I'm still waiting to be loved properly the way that I define love. Maybe that's not fair to somebody, but I'm such a giver. I've given. And I'm still waiting for that to come. I have hope.
Yeah.
Well, that somebody will love me past Gina. So I'm open.
Okay, so I found this clip really, really, really fascinating, and I think I might work a little bit backwards from my conclusion here. We have some more clips to cover off, but there are so many different things to touch upon in this particular clip. What I might actually do, I might replay it again and then just break it down as things come to mind. Again, guys, like, share, subscribe. But notice, here is Tisha Campbell. She's obviously very popular in her heyday. She was the it girl. I mean, she had access to all kinds of men. She was married for a significant amount of time. And yet she said, years later, her different marriage, her different romantic experiences, whatever, that she has never been properly loved. There's a lot to unpack there, but let's replay it and then break it down.
Where are you with love in your life now?
Oh, what you say?
Tisha, that was a very direct question.
I didn't hear you.
Where are you with love?
What? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the love for myself.
Okay, so let's start there. And this is no disrespect, right? Tisha Campbell is 57. Now, I don't know exactly when this this interview took place, but it appears as if it was at least within the last few years. So I think it's safe to assume that she was at least in her 50s when she did this interview, right? I think when we're talking about dating, mating, relationships, and ultimately the ability to build a family, there has to be some core basic principles in alignment and in order for that to happen successfully. To build a family, to sustain a family, to maintain a family, you have to have some basic skills. What I noticed about her comment right here, we're just barely 15, 20 seconds in, is that, she asked about love. She says, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out how to love myself. This woman is 57 years old. She's 57 years old. This woman, she's an elder to a certain extent. She's an elder. She could be a grandmother. She's a woman that other generations of women could look up to. So my thing is, okay, so if you are an elder in the Black community, I'm not saying she's the oldest, but I'm saying she's definitely in a position where she could be mentoring younger women. She could be, teaching them how to, how to maintain healthy relationships, how to take care of themselves, how to have healthy balance. Like she is in a position in the phase in her life where she could have a lot of influence and a good impact on younger women. If this particular woman at 57, with the amount of success that she's had in her career, the amount of access she's had to some of the most desirable men, some of the most affluent men, if she's saying that she's still figuring out how to love herself, what capacity does she have, or what capacity would someone with her mindset have to be able to teach younger generations? If you're still in the realm of like, oh, I'm still trying to do me at 57. I'm still trying to do me at 57. Okay, so how does that now translate into your ability to positively impact other generations? Because the reason I'm saying this is when we're talking about like just the natural order of things, across all cultures, it is what it is. The elders, they impact the younger generation. Older generations, they teach, they impart, they instill values, they instill ideas, they instill lessons, they impart into younger generations. This is just a human, this is just like a human basic I guess truth, if you will. So if you are an elder of any community, or if you are in the capacity or the position where you now have the influence, you have the platform, you have the money, the responsibility, and you would presumably have the wisdom now to be able to influence younger generations, but you're still in the phase of your life where you're still trying to do you and you're still trying to love you, what ability now do you have to impact younger generations? So I'm listening to this and I'm just like, wow, you're 57 and you're still trying to figure out how to love yourself. If you're still trying to figure out how to love yourself, what is the implications of that? Does that mean, okay, because I haven't figured out how to love myself, I can't necessarily find somebody else to really settle down with? I certainly can't really, impart to younger women how to properly love themselves, but also while, being interdependent in a man. I can't impart to them how to raise a family or kids that have a healthy understanding of self-esteem and self-love. Like, if you're still there, and that, I mean, like I said, that's her journey, no shade, but I'm just saying, if you're still there, what ability now do you have to actually impart to young women? And I'm just using her, it's more of just as an example, but the thing is, she's just one person, but I think she actually speaks to, I would say, a larger trend that I've actually noticed, because she's not the first woman I've heard say this. I want to say, I'm trying to think if it was Claudia Jordan. I'm trying to think of Lisa Ray. It was one of the two, but it was more recently. It was another celebrity actress, about to be 60. You know, she's mature, beautiful, beautiful, still beautiful. You know, still attractive in their age range, but obviously gorgeous when they were younger. Had access to some of the most desirable men. Were married or in relationships at one time with the most desirable men, and they're in their 60s talking about I'm single and I'm still trying to figure out me. I'm still trying to love me. And I'm like, okay, so I think this is also something else I would encourage women to do when they start to ask themselves whether or not what they're believing actually makes sense or is delusional. If their frame of logic, if it doesn't apply across genders, then I would encourage you to question it. For example, I want you to imagine a 57-year-old man who was in an interview and they said, "Oh, what do you think about love? What are your thoughts about love?" I want you just to imagine a 57-year-old man, actor, right, who was very successful, very handsome, had access to all kind of different women, had relationships with different women. And at 57, he said, I don't even know. I'm just still trying to love me. I want you to imagine a 57-year-old actor, a man, particularly a black man, going on a podcast at 57 and saying, "I don't know. I am still just trying to do me and love me." Would that logic apply? Would it make any sense? Would anyone take it seriously? Or would somebody look at that man and be like, "Bro, you're hella immature, bro. Like, you're almost 60. You just don't want to commit." Or like, would they start to just make all of these negative assumptions about his inability to commit? Maybe you hate your mama. Maybe you're emotionally insecure. Maybe you're a cheater. Like, would they start to character assassinate him if he came with the same rhetoric? I personally think yes. I think if a man who was 57 went in a podcast and said, "I am still trying to do me and I'm still trying to learn how to love myself, and therefore, I've had a hard time finding a satisfying, fulfilling relationship, et cetera, et cetera." I believe if a 57-year-old man went in a podcast and said that, he would be dragged here until tomorrow and he will be judged. But when a woman does it, then there's more space and there's more understanding and there's more room for it to be about her emotional development. And what I'm trying to articulate is the challenge is it's the responsibility of the moms, the aunties, the grandmothers, the elders of the communities to instill into young girls who are becoming young women how to actually have a healthy self-esteem, and also how to be able to get along with men and families, how to be able to grow families and nurture families. And if we're looking at the elders in our communities and they're still kind of figuring it out, they don't even have long-term healthy relationships on their own, and the best thing they can say is, "I'm still trying to do me," well then it's like the blind leading the blinder. Like there's like there's there's disarray on all levels. And so when we talk about, okay, well, why do so many black women have a hard time finding love, finding a hard time finding marriage, finding a hard time finding long-lasting relationships, we have to start to look at some of the different cultural ideas. And unfortunately, some of these cultural ideas are actually being perpetuated by our elders. And I'm not trying to pick on Tisha Campbell. I think she's a talented person. She's beautiful. But I'm just saying, if we're to understand her mindset, and if we're to consider how this mindset, when it's pervasive across her generation and across elders, what that means for young girls who are becoming women, it is very toxic. It's very toxic, in my opinion. It's not helpful. It means you have these girls growing up trying to figure out things on their own, having no concept of healthy self-esteem, having zero concept of what it even means to be interdependent on a man, having even less understanding on how to healthfully nurture a family, don't understand sacrifice, don't understand that things don't always have to be about you 24/7, don't understand that that yeah, sacrifice is a part of being in a relationship. Just because you're sacrificing something doesn't mean that like you're being a slave or that you are enslaved or all these different things. Like, that is to be in a family, to be in a functional marriage, to be in a functional family, to raise kids, you're going to have to sacrifice. They don't understand the value of sacrifice. They see it as oppression. Like, if you grow up with those mindsets, then you can't be surprised now when you have generations of women who are just like, well, why can't I find love? It's so confusing. I don't get it. And it's like, well, you weren't prepared to. You weren't prepared to actually do that. Okay, so anyways, she only 10 seconds in. What's going on, y'all? Shout out to you with the 2. It says, thank you so much for the algorithm. I appreciate you. You guys like, share, subscribe. Oh, you know what? Let me set my goal. I didn't even set my goal. If I get enough support, then I'll open up the call lines. If not, y'all know the drill. You already know how we do. Okay, so thank you so much for that. Let me set my goal. I've been trying to get better about that. And then we are going to continue. Okay. All right. You guys, so let's continue. I'm just doing this right now. Okay. Sorry guys. I should have done this before, but y'all, you already know how it is. Y'all already know how it is. Okay, so let's see what she has to say.
I'm still unpacking all of that. I know that I love people. I just don't know if I'm loved back by people.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Where are you with love in your life now?
Oh, what'd you say?
Tisha, that was a very direct question.
I didn't hear you.
Where are you with love?
What? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the love for myself. I'm still unpacking all of that. I know that I love people. I just don't know if I'm loved back.
Okay, I'm trying not to laugh. This is not funny. Okay, again, before I continue with my thoughts, I encourage all women when they're looking at these kinds of ideas and concepts around self-love, all of that different stuff. If it cannot apply across both genders, then I encourage you to question it. So again, now let's unpack what she said. She said, I love people. I just don't know if people love me back. She's sharing her true experience. She's sharing her true feelings. Those are her genuine feelings, right? So no one's here to downplay that. And honestly, I mean, I don't think any woman would ultimately attack that in most instances. She believes that she's loved all these different people. Nobody's loved her back. That's what she essentially believes. Now, I want you to imagine a man saying the exact same thing of her age, of her rank, of her social status with his same level of success. I just want you to imagine a man who's 57, you know, who was a prolific actor, had a singing career, had access to different actresses, was highly desirable in his day, you know, was a successful individual. And all we could say was, I've loved people. I just don't know if people love me back. Would that logic apply? Or would the first thing people do, would they look at that man and say, bro, you're crazy? So again, I'm encouraging people, particularly women, when we start to look at these concepts around self-love that oftentimes are being promoted by different people in Hollywood, women specifically, when we see these ideas of self-love and self-preservation and all this kind of different stuff, if the logic cannot apply to a man, I would highly encourage you to question it. That's all I'm saying. I would encourage you to question it. Now, here's another thing I'd be thinking the problem is. I feel like women go into relationships wanting men to be God. Like they expect men to like know all of their thoughts, to know exactly what they need from, you know, the man without telling the man, to feel, you know, loved and, you know, and cherished. I mean, like, which, I mean, I understand you do want to feel loved and cherished in a relationship, but sometimes I feel like ladies be looking for God and men. And it's like, listen, if you don't have a connection with the Most High, if you don't have like a basic spiritual understanding with the Most High, where you feel loved by Him, then you're never going to feel loved. You're always going to look for somebody else to fill that void, and that's ultimately going to be very exhausting for that person, because nobody can, like, whatever void that she is feeling, to where in her mind she believes nobody loves her. That's because it likely has nothing to do with the people that she's interacted with. That likely has more to do with perhaps a spiritual void that she doesn't have with the Most High, right? Because there's a certain part in her heart that only the Most High can fill, and if we don't allow the Most High to fill that, if we don't have that connection, then ultimately we're gonna feel the void, and we're gonna always look to men. We're always gonna look to different things, different people, and then you go around thinking ultimately that nobody else loves you. It's everybody else's fault, and it's like, no, you haven't returned to your source. So to me, I'm just like, in my brain, like I feel like some of these ladies are like they have these super unrealistic expectations because one, they're not spiritually grounded. You already know I'm a Christ follower, and to me, that's everything. My connection with Christ is my foundation, right? And because of that, I feel like that gives me the ability to now more healthily interact with my husband. But if you don't have any spiritual foundation, or if you're just kind of like, I don't know, you're on some tarot card crystal stuff or whatever these ladies are doing, trying to make up their own God. You don't have any strong spiritual source. You're out here now trying to find God in other things other than God himself. And when I hear things like this, I'm just like, wait, so you mean you've been walking around 57 years and ain't nobody loved you? At that point, to me, that sounds more of like a spiritual issue than like, hey man, that's just me personally. But let's continue to see what else she has to say.
Like people. That's a really hard statement to say. Oof. Let me tell you the story. So I was doing this thing with Shirley Ralph. It was called Diva Simply Singing, right? And on the show was Brenda Russell. Remember Brenda Russell?
Of course. Piano in the Dark.
She also wrote You Can Reach Me by Trailway, right? Get there if you can. And I asked her, I said, that song, I said, God, it's so beautiful.
I don't care how you get there. Just
get there if you can. I said, who were you talking about when you wrote that song? And she says, oh yeah, that's where people get it, misconstrued, because I wasn't talking about a person. I was talking about love itself. I've never been loved in my life.
Oof. What the hell? I was like, what is this theme? Ain't nobody loved you? Your mama, your daddy, your auntie, you didn't have a friend, a boyfriend. And listen, Tisha Campbell, she was married. So what she's essentially saying is that her husband never loved her. I'm like, what the? I'm sorry. For me, I'm like, what is going on? Y'all saying that, some of y'all saying J-Lo said did J-Lo say the same? Y'all said J-Lo and Halle Berry. Did they say the same thing, really? I'm not familiar with that. Y'all let me know down in the comment section if y'all also have heard the same words from J-Lo and Halle Berry. I'm not familiar with that, but I also would not be surprised. But I'm like, Brett, what is this? To me, that further reiterates my point, where it's just like your issues are spiritual and emotional, psychological first. Because if you walk around feeling like ain't nobody loved you, nobody, then like to me, it's like, okay, me personally, I'm like, that's a personal issue. Because at the end of the day, if it's everybody else's fault but you, then I'm like, okay, you might need to reinvestigate your understanding and your idea of love, and it's likely not based on anything real. I'm not saying that the feelings are not real, but I'm saying that I believe the feelings are misplaced. Because I have a hard time believing it's like, didn't nobody love you? You mean your own mama didn't love you, really? That's crazy to me. And like I said, it's these celebrity women. It's these women who have the looks, the money, the fame, the platform. They have everything that feminism told you that you were supposed to have. They had everything feminism told you that you were supposed to want. And they still out here complaining. They're still not happy. They're still not feeling love. That's what I'm saying. For me, like, this is like a God-sized void here. And then if you go in these relationships, you're looking for God. You're looking for a savior. But in a man, you ain't gonna find it. And then and I even said that before. I was like, honestly, now some of these ladies' expectations are so high because even Jesus wouldn't even live up to them. They would call Jesus a broke dusty because he was on a donkey. They wouldn't even allow the Savior himself to love them. So it's like some ladies out here are blocking out love for real. But to me, if your narrative is nobody has loved you ever and you're in your 60s, I'm like, I think that also deserves some investigation. At that point, to me, that sounds like more of a personal issue. I'm not saying your emotions aren't real, but I think perhaps the emotions are misguided because I find it hard to believe that ain't nobody ever loved you, ever. I don't care who you are. It may not have been perfect, but like, really? And like I said, these aren't, it may be one thing if these women are just like, broken prostitutes who were orphaned when they were too strung out on drugs and they never had a stable anything. I'm like, these are women who have been married. Some of these women are married. These are women who've had and marriages with multiple desirable men. They've had different men of all different backgrounds who would have loved to have been with them. These are women who have the money, the fame, the accolades, the access. They have the status. They have everything. Feminism will tell you what you want, and they're still not happy. So that's why I'm just like, nah, my belief is that this is more of a personal issue than it is men ain't never loved me. And again, I'm saying this because I'm like, if this is coming from elders and the community, what ability do they have to impart anything to young women? What ability do they have to teach these women how to actually be wives and how to maintain a family if they haven't been able to do it themselves? You know what I mean?
You've never been loved in your life. And then now I am here in this moment, kind of more understanding her words. I have loved and I put my whole heart into it. I not only believe in the good of man, I also believed in marriage, commitment, all of the things. And I'm still waiting to be loved properly the way that I define love.
Okay, see, she says, I'm waiting to be loved the way I define it. And that actually might be, that could actually be a core issue. That might actually be a core issue. Now, here's the thing. There's this whole idea of love language. I think that's more of like I think that's like idea that came out of psychology, but it's just basically this concept that everybody has a way that they feel loved. That love, it kind of breaks down to like 5 or so primary love languages. Some people feel more loved with physical touch. Some people feel more loved with gift giving. Some people feel more loved with just time spent. Some people feel more loved with words of affirmation. So it's like, it's this concept of, as human beings, we all have things that make us feel loved and just encouraged and uplifted, and it's different by person. And I think that there's a level of truth to that, right? If you've had any relationship, you understand some of your friends, some of your children, some people, they love gifts. Other people are more about just time spent together. Other people are just want to be heard. So there is a level of truth to that. But I think now this whole, let me define what I think love is, I think that can start to create room for delusion when we understand the amount of propaganda that's essentially been marketed to women over the last how many decades, through romance novels, through television series, through movies, through sitcoms, through books, through magazines, and through all aspects of media. And again, like I said, if your idea of love is not being filtered, in my opinion, if it's not being filtered through your spiritual understanding, through God, and through actual, I think, just healthy family, like if we're just coming up with ideas of love that I think are, quite frankly, erroneous and are self-serving, that are exclusively self-serving, then nobody's going to be able to fit that. Nobody. And I'm not denying the fact that we all have things that may make us feel a little bit, loved more and more. That's things that you work out in your family and your marriage and your relationship. But I caution anybody who's created a concept of love that literally nobody can live up to, not even God himself. Because for me, I'm like, if nobody ever has the capacity to live up to your version of love, then it might be that your version is skewed. That's just my opinion. And again, I'm not trying to hate on her, but I wanted to address this because I'm just like, this woman's about to be 57. I mean, not 50, about to be. This woman is 57. She's not very far from 60. And this wouldn't be the first time I've heard women like her say these things. I know some of you guys mentioned you heard this from J-Lo, from Holly Berry, perhaps from other actresses. I'm not aware of that, but I would not be surprised because this does sound like something kind of coming out of Hollyweird. But I'm like, bro, if nobody can live up to your version of love, maybe your version of love needs to be, maybe it needs to be addressed, and maybe it needs to be redefined. Maybe it's not, maybe your version of love is a bit delusional. That's just my opinion. Let's continue.
Maybe that's not fair to somebody. But I'm such a giver. I've given. And I'm still waiting for that to come. I have hope.
Yeah.
Well, that somebody will love me past Gina. So I'm open.
I'm like, wow. I mean, to me, it's like, this is no disrespect, but to me, it's kind of sad when I see women almost 60, like, I'm waiting to be really loved. That's kind of sad to me. That's kind of like, it is a little sad. It's like, wow, but it's also just an indication of where we're at. To me, that's how I look at it. It's like, it's very much an indication of where we're at. You know what I mean? So I just had to play that because I thought that was a little cray. I'm not going to sit here and lie. Cause like I want you guys to imagine a reality in which a grown man who almost 60 got online and said, I've never been loved. I'm a giver. I'm a giver. I'm a giver. But I'm just waiting for the time somebody loves me back. I just want you guys to imagine that interview, imagine that conversation. He sat there and also said, oh, I'm just still trying to learn how to love me. And I want you to imagine if that conversation would be taken seriously. If it would be taken seriously, then that's completely okay. Then fine, no issues. If that conversation would not be taken seriously, if a man had it, then I think it deserves to be investigated. Because a lot of these ideas, I think a lot of these ideas of self-love and doing for self and putting your happiness self, I think a lot of these ideas are actually making women less and less happy, to be quite frank. I'm sick of all these Hollywood women coming online, then broke up their marriage and broke up their family, then done all this crazy stuff, and then they go online and all these healing journeys and talk about, oh, I had to put me first. But then 10 years later, they're still trying to learn how to love themselves. I'm like, hell, you put yourself first, what, 10, 15 years ago, and you still putting yourself first and you still ain't learned your lesson? Well, maybe that's the issue. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to have self-love, a healthy self-love. I'm not saying it's wrong to want to have healthy boundaries. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I just think a lot of this stuff that they be trying to promote through Hollywood, through these different like liberal self-love, self-journey, healing journey affirmations and stuff that I see a lot of celebrities pushing, I think it's making women actually less happy. Because it's like you're moving away from, in my opinion, you're moving away from things that are actually meaningful. And when you start focusing on yourself so much in a way that's unhealthy, and you're not God-centered, you don't have a strong spiritual center, and you don't have a center around community, but you're constantly trying to fix yourself, that's exhausting. That's like literally exhausting to me. My opinion. So, okay, this one right here says, no, there's no disrespect. Some of us are community property. Shout out to you for the 199. It says, imagine being 50 and concerned with yourself. I'm not opposed to somebody having a good time. I'm not opposed to somebody loving themselves. I just personally am like, okay, it seems like this whole love yourself, self-love, focus on yourself, do for yourself, be for yourself, do everything for yourself. Like to me, it just seems like it's not necessarily leading to more happiness among women, right? And when we're having this conversation about, okay, why Black women are having a hard time being married or whatever, like why they're having a hard time finding love, I think it's important for us to start to examine these really popular ideas, these popular beliefs that are being promoted across social media and just that have been promoted across media for decades, because I believe these are some of the very beliefs that are actually keeping women from what they want. These are some of the very beliefs that are keeping women, confused, believing all kind of different just foolishness, unhappy, unmarriageable, undateable, because they're still trying to figure out even how to love themselves. And it's like, bro, if you've been on a self-love journey for like 30 years, 40, 50 years, maybe maybe there's something else going on here. I don't know. That's just I thought this interview was kind of wild. And as I said before, I'm not opposed to healthy self-love, but if you have someone who's almost 60 who is revealing that at almost 60 years old, they're still learning how to love themselves and then never felt loved. So, okay, what ability do they now have to impart any wisdom or any insight to younger generations? And I think the reason that's an important question is because the elders are the ones who are ultimately responsible for raising up younger girls and raising up young girls who would ultimately be women to be wives and girlfriends. Like if they're not taught, well, how are they going to learn? It would be the older generation. Somebody like her, she's in a position, she could be somebody's grandma, right? She's in a position to have influence, to have impact, you know what I mean? To impart wisdom, guidance, to impart all kind of insight into young girls who are trying to figure out their lives and figure out themselves and kind of, figure out their own romantic journey, their own self-love journey, all of that. Like she's in a position, she's in a powerful position, especially with her level of influence, money, access, all of that. That's the natural order of things. She's in that phase of life. But what I'm saying is that when you have women who are in that phase of life who still haven't really learned those things themselves, then how can they impart that into younger generations? And I think that's important to know, because to me, what this reflects is, again, a broken down understanding in the culture. It's a broken down understanding, and then a lack of knowledge, a lack of being taught. Because if your own grandma and your own mama, if they don't have an understanding on how to, not even they don't have an understanding on how to be married, how to maintain a family, they barely have an understanding on how to even have a healthy relationship with themselves, then what can they give to you? And I think we have a lot of that going on in the Black community, personally. Okay, so I just wanted to share that real quick. I thought that was something else. I don't know what's going on with YouTube. I'm trying to set this goal, like, this thing must be not working, because I was trying to set this goal this whole time and it is not working. So it is what it is, y'all. Like, share, subscribe. You already know the drill. All super chats will be acknowledged. That's how it goes. So, okay, let's move on. I had a few other things that I wanted to cover off and review. Okay. So this is just going to be a quick recap, rather, of kind of what we went over, what we went over the last, I would say, just over some of the last few lives that we've had, where we've, been unpacking this. We've been unpacking this idea. And, one of my first, I think, well, let me say this. When we understand that, black women today are still like the least married. 1 in 4, I think at best, are likely to get married. When we consider that, I don't think it's just one reason. I don't think it's just one reason that Black women are the least married. I think there's multiple reasons. Now, I think one of the primary reasons that Black women are not married is strictly because they don't want to be. We don't have a culture that's cultivated that. We don't have an environment, like America collectively is not a culture that produces wives or husbands. It's not a culture that is about promoting families. It's more individualistic. It's more secular. It's more about, production, but it's not a culture, particularly when you compare it to other nations that are a lot more conservative, a lot more religious or whatever. We're not that. America is largely secular. So the default nature of America, it's more secularism, it's more individualism, it's more kind of do you boo, like do for yourself. And so we don't really have like a husband-wife producing culture. Now in Black America, I think we especially do not have a wife producing culture. And part of that is because of feminism, right? There's been countless and countless and countless decades now of feminism that has actually directly gone against and challenged even the value of marriage, and so again, we're just going to do a quick deep dive. And like I said, this is a quick reminder. Actually, let me do this real quick. We do a quick reminder of when we were looking at marriage from a feminist lens. And I mentioned Bell Hooks because Bell Hooks is probably one of the most popular Black feminists out there. And she was very open about the fact that marriage was considered basically patriarchal oppression. And this is a pretty popular feminist tenet. When we look at, if you just understand feminism on just a basic level, they've always kind of equated marriage to basically oppression. So, and let me show you here. Like I said, this is literally like a basic Google AI. This is not even like a deep dive, but I'm just telling you, this is how pervasive the idea of feminism being patriarchal oppression, or the idea of the idea of marriage being patriarchal oppression, and the idea of marriage being not good for women. This is how pervasive it is, right? So again, if we look at Bell Hooks, she was like one of the most popular Black feminists not only of her era, but even today, she's oftentimes referenced. Here it says Bell Hooks viewed marriage through a feminist lens, and we could argue that American culture is by and large feminist, arguing that patriarchal culture often corrupts it, turning a potential union of equals into a structure upholding domination and inequality. She urged an ongoing critique of marriage to resist this, advocating for a foundation of honest communication, love with an action, and mutual growth rather than gendered patriarchal roles. So basically, her idea is that marriage upholds the patriarchy. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And she kind of broke this down in some of her different books. Key perspectives of Bell Hooks on marriage include she maintained that even alternative marriages are pressured by the surrounding patriarchal culture to adopt traditional power imbalances. So she believed even in marriages that were maybe non-conventional, they still had the pressure of basically falling under patriarchal norms. And so I'm saying this because, again, if we look at Bell Hooks as a popular feminist thought leader, as one of the most influential Black feminists of her time and even of today. And we understand that her thoughts and her beliefs have been pervasive across mainstream culture, across Black female culture for decades. Listen to what she has to say about marriage. There's nothing positive that she's saying at all about marriage, not at all. So why is that important? Okay, if you grew up in a culture that basically said marriage is patriarchal oppression, marriage is bad, and marriage is that is not to the benefit of women. If you grew up in that culture, or you got those messages all day, every day, and then you got elders in your family saying, "Oh, I'm still trying to do me. I've never been loved in my life." Maybe they had marriages, or maybe they didn't have marriages. They had long-term relationships, but you got elders telling you, "I ain't never been loved by men in my life. I ain't never been loved by nobody." Then culture is telling you that marriage is patriarchal oppression. You've been hearing that for decades. You can't be surprised now in 2026 when most of y'all ain't married. When most Black women aren't married. It's like, okay, well, what's the culture? Like, what are you even being told? Are you even being taught to be wise? Is that even a value? And so again, I'm just reviewing some of just the basic things we've gone over the last few weeks when I was able to go live. Now I've had some breaks here, but we're just reviewing this because I'm like, when we start to actually understand what's been going on, it becomes less and less surprising. What's going on, Mr. Z? Good to see you in the building. Shout out to you for some of the receipts, man. Like, man, those receipts. I saw that live you did a few weeks ago about the how feminist is culture, and I'm like, bruh, that is so true. And I pulled some of those. I pulled that TikTok girly, the Gen Zer, who went from, "Oh man, I'm sad that I don't have a man," to, "Oh, I will never ever do anything for a man." Yeah, that's another prime example. I may have to play that again in a bit. So going back to why Black women aren't married. Well, a lot of them aren't married because they don't want to be. And they've existed in a culture that's told them that marriage is inherently patriarchal oppression. They've gotten that blatantly through feminist outlets, through media outlets, through different sitcoms. They've gotten that subtly from aunties and mamas and sisters or elders in the community that sat them and told them that they've never been loved with the long-term relationships, right? And so we're looking at the many reasons Black women may be having a hard time finding love, finding marriage. Okay, so again, we're just reviewing some stuff. Now, here's another one. We looked at this, but again, we're just reviewing here. This is something Carrie Hilson said March 9th. This is maybe about a week or so ago. Carrie Hilson, another beautiful, popular, to my understanding, single, unmarried celebrity. Let's see. She is 43. She's 43. Listen to what she has to say about love. She says, sometimes a man with more money is still below you. Notice she didn't say a person. She didn't say an individual. She was very explicit. A man. Sometimes a man with more money is still below you. So there's a lot to this. The first thing that I'm reading from this is basically, it's always Remain's fault. It's always Remain's fault. And the reason I'm saying that is because what she's essentially saying is that even the men on my level, or even the men that are above my level, social, economic, they have the degrees, they have the money, they have the whatever it may be, all the things that the laundry list that women want as far as credentials, even those men still are not on my level. They're still not good enough. They're still not necessarily what I need. It's still their fault that I'm single, essentially. Because think of the amount of flack and the amount of pushback Black men specifically have gotten for not having college degrees. The amount of insults, the amount of shaming, the amount of just downright degrading that Black men collectively have gotten for not having the same amount of college degrees as Black women. Think about that. Think about where all the good Black men, they usually go straight to the fact that, oh, they don't have as much credentials. And the argument is, okay, these men need to level up. They need to get jobs. They need to get these jobs in these corporate positions, and we need to see more of them in schools and colleges and these professional fields. We need to see that. That's the argument. That is like the general mainstream argument that a lot of Black women, particularly educated Black women, complain about. But then now, when we're looking at the men who are there, we're looking at the men that are there, they're still not good enough. They're still beneath you. Now, she doesn't say why. She didn't say, oh, because of they have personality issues or because they're psychological. She doesn't go say why. She just says they're just beneath. They could still be beneath you. And to me, this is just like subtle shade, subtle shade, subtle shade. So even somebody on your level or above you, even somebody who fits all of the list of what you may need or who may qualify for you, still is below you. And to me, it's this kind of thinking. It's this kind of in one instance, I can never be loved. But then in another instance, I'm better than you. And here's something else I've noticed about these conversations. Y'all notice how oftentimes women present themselves as the moral authority. How many of these women do you hear being reflective? Saying, you know what? I was a bit selfish there. Or I had unrealistic expectations. Or I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Or, you know what I mean? Like, how many women do you actually hear when they're talking about these things having even an ounce of self-reflection? How many? More often than not, I hear these women, when they're complaining about relationships, they're presenting themselves as the moral authority, as the moral hierarchy, as the one who has all of the ethics and all of the morals and all of the purity and all of they're presenting themselves as the moral police. It's as if women by nature being women are virtuous and men are not. And I think that framing is also can be very narcissistic, quite frankly. So again, we're going over some examples. We're just going over some examples here. This is another Carrie Hilson, beautiful, successful woman, right? Has access to plenty of men, plenty of desirable, high value men, et cetera, et cetera. She's still basically saying these men ain't nothing. These men are trash, whatever. She's saying the same thing women who are, working in retail or working in Walmart or whatever are saying. She's saying the exact same thing. The exact same thing. And again, this is important because why is this important? Because when we start to talk about, well, why are Black women having such a hard time getting married? Why are they having a hard time finding love? I think we have to start to unpack some of these beliefs. I think it's wrong to assume that women are the moral authority. And I'm going to play this video again as an example for those of you guys who are just joining me, because I think this is just a prime example. This is a Gen Zer. Again, I got to give a shout out to Mr. Z because he's the one that actually I found these receipts on his page. But this is a Gen Zer who in one instance was complaining about not finding love and never having even held the hand of a guy and never really having had any romantic interaction or even ever being loved by anyone romantically. This is a Gen Zer, 24. But then I want you to hear what she has to say about who men are.
Never dated anyone before, and honestly at this point I'm afraid to, because men are scary and evil. They're scary and evil. What if one day he wakes up and decides he hates me and wants to kill me? What if he has a secret group chat where he's racist about me to all of his friends? What if one day we have this beautiful family and he loses his job and he's like, actually, you know what, I'll kill myself and kill my entire family? Men are really scary. They're really scary and evil. Or what if he just pretends to like me so that he can have sex with me? What if he does that? What if he just pretends to like me so that he can have sex with one of my friends? I don't know. Men are scary and evil, and I want to be in a relationship, but I don't know if I'm sweating it that much when I realize that most men are evil.
That wouldn't be the first time I've heard something like that. That's a young 24-year-old, young Gen Zer. And she's come to this conclusion that nearly half of the population is just inherently evil. And I say that because, again, when I mention how many of these discussions around dating and relationships, when you hear women complaining about men, are they positioning themselves as the moral hierarchy? There's never a consideration, or there's rarely is there a consideration on whether or not they've done something wrong, or whether or not they have areas where they can improve, or whether or not they have, psychological trauma, whatever. There's never a consideration about that. It's almost always positioned as women are the moral authority and men are the villains. We've seen that time and time and time again. I wanted to just play that example again to kind of show you guys. I think that's just a clear example of the narrative. It's really direct. But notice this theme among a lot of the dating and relationship discourse. Women are complaining about what men are not doing, how they're not showing up, how they're not this, and that. Right. And I'm not saying that men collectively are perfect. Of course, there's toxic men. Of course, there are issues that men can address and should address among men. Of course, no one's saying that. But what I am saying is that the one thing I don't really hear is a ton of self reflection. I don't hear it almost ever. And I think that's important to note because, again, when you're talking about relationships, the ability to even find a relationship, let alone maintain one, these these kind of emotional and psychological challenges actually will impact the ability for someone or people collectively to find love. And if there's this like mainstream narrative that men are like inherently evil and then women are inherently more moral, again, that creates a really, really toxic imbalance. And that can further drive a wedge between men and women. It can create unrealistic expectations and understandings. Now when you're trying to interact with a man, it can create all kinds of issues. You know what I mean? So, okay. So we went over, Tisha Campbell and her talking about how she never was loved. We went over Carrie Hilson and her talking about how even men in her level or above her level economically can still be beneath her. For what reason, we don't know. They can just still be beneath her, right? And again, she's positioning herself as the moral authority. We're going over some receipts right now. Okay, let me see if I can find some other examples here, guys. Bear with me. Where'd you go? Okay. Now, and again, these are some of these are examples that we went over before, but let me see, is it this one? Here's another one. Now, this is just like a random tweet that went viral, but but here it says, I just declined a marriage proposal from my boyfriend of 3 years. He's not what I want in a husband. I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You guys didn't see this. Sorry about that. Let me try this again. Let me try this again. See if you guys are able to actually see it. Okay. You guys let me know if you can see it or not. Okay, so here it says, I just declined a marriage proposal from my boyfriend of 3 years. He's not what I want in a husband. We're talking a little bit about, not even a little bit, we're talking about why Black women continue to reveal, or why Black women are having a hard time finding marriage, long-term love, all of that. Okay. So here's another example. This is just an anecdotal example, but this is a Black woman who alleges that she dated someone for 3 years. He proposed, and she just decided that she didn't want him to be her husband. Now, I want you guys, those of you guys maybe who were around or had any chance to watch some of Kevin Samuels' content, do you guys remember the amount of women who would call on demanding high-value men, but then after having conversations at some point in time would talk about the amount of times that they were engaged? And this is oftentimes when Kevin Samuels asked, okay, well, have you ever been married? I'm trying to get a sense of the relationship status. How to? How many? Now, this is just an anecdotal example. And like I said, it's possible she's lying just to get clicks and views. I don't know, because with a name like Sugar Mama, I'm like, okay, so that definitely to me is very suspect. It's very suspect. But just for argument's sake, if we are to assume that what she said is true, why would anyone in the right mind be in a relationship with someone for 3 years knowing full and very well that they don't see them as their husband, what would be the purpose of doing that? Unless it is to just take the person's money. And here's another challenge. You do have the likes of people like Shira Seven, for example, who are very open and very clear about a woman going out there and getting a man for his money. She doesn't promote feminine strategies that are about finding love and marriage. She's about women finding men who can pay their bills. She's about essentially promoting a form of prostitution, in my opinion. So it is one anecdotal example, but I want you guys to notice the mindset. So you're dating somebody for 3 years that you have no intention of marrying. He proposes to you. You turn him down because he's not what you want in your husband. Here's another thing too. Which leads me to believe that, okay, if she's telling the truth, and this is a legitimate relationship, it wasn't for anything legitimate. If it was because he cheated, if it was because he was abusive, if it was because he did something that was just, out of pocket, she would have said that. She would have said, I found that he was a cheater. I found out he was a liar. I found out he was abusive, narcissistic. She would have explicitly said that if the man that proposed to her was those things. She would have said that. And then honestly, there would have been people in the comment section would have been like, girl, you were right. Yes, you don't want to be, there's no need to commit yourself to an abuser or et cetera, et cetera. You don't want to be with somebody narcissistic. So the fact that she didn't say that leads me to believe that the only reason she didn't want to get with this man is just because this wasn't her type or whatever. But it wasn't anything. It wasn't like a deal breaker as far as like, he wasn't a husband material. He wasn't lovable. He didn't have good, solid qualities. It just was, she just wasn't into it. And I believe that because if there was something legitimate, like I said, such as he was abusive, or let's say he was a crazy gambler, he was unstable, he was whatever, that would have been explicitly said. So again, when we're talking about why you have ladies who are having a hard time finding love, long-term love, especially as they age, we have to start to look at the culture that is around us and what we're adopting. And things that are considered normal, things that are actively talked about, promoted, things that are widespread are not conducive of healthy relationships, are not conducive of healthy, functional families, are not conducive of marriage. If you follow this mainstream culture, if you just kind of like go with the flow, you will likely be single and you will likely struggle to find love because culture and this normal mainstream culture, as it's being promoted to Black women in America specifically, is all about keeping them single and unhappy. And that's what we're talking about. Okay. All right. So again, we're going over examples. Now here's something else. I want to play this again real quick. This was Ari Lennox. I actually appreciate her because I'm hearing some self-reflection in this particular interview that I'm going to show y'all. Again, we're just going over some receipts. I wanted to bring you guys up to speed. Those of you guys who've missed my last lives. Oops, where'd I go? Hey, okay. Okay. So some of you guys may have seen it, some of you guys may have not, but I just want to replay it real quick. But this is Ari Lennox, basically, she's getting honest about her relationship struggles, but I'm really appreciative of her having a bit of self-reflection. I don't see her positioning herself as a moral hierarchy as much as I see her at least being honest that maybe there's some areas where she can improve. But nevertheless, I want to play this because I think, again, these are issues that women face, Black women particularly, they face when it comes to trying to find love.
I think I have a thing for toxic energy. So I think there's still some more healing that I need to do because when I look back on all of these energies, it's a shame I gave them so much time and there were sweet energies that I didn't. Yeah. And so now I see those sweet energies getting married and starting families. I'm just like, dang, that probably could have been me if I recognized the security in those individuals at the time. And like now I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely feeling that now. I'm aware that there's something going on. There's something wrong.
What do you think it is that attracts you to like toxic energy?
I think they just seem really exciting at first. The chemistry is incredible. And they don't even always be fine. It's not even that like they're sexy or something. I mean, well, they're sexy, but they don't be the finest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's just an energy. It's sometimes it's convenience, what we talk about. A lot of the sweeter energies that I felt like weren't for me. I could see myself falling asleep a little bit on the phone. So I don't know if that's like if boring is good or not. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out what that means. Like
It's the thrill.
yeah.
It's the thrill of it.
Yeah.
What's
absolutely.
your sign?
Okay, so I really, really, really appreciate her honesty in that one. I really do. I don't hear her attacking men. I don't hear her saying all men are trash and they're not on my level. She's just like, okay, maybe I kind of find myself attracted to a certain particular kind of man, and I'm aware of this because the men that I didn't give really attention to, they were nice and kind and they were sweet and they're basically husband material, and they've gone on to have successful love stories and I have not. And so maybe there's things that I need to consider. I really appreciate that. Like I really do. But what I will say is, notice also, she's 34, but she's talking about how she's still trying to figure this stuff out. And, the reason you can have the likes of like Ari Lennox or whatever, who, as successful as she is, as beautiful as she is still trying to figure this stuff out, is probably because she probably wasn't taught this stuff as a young girl. And unfortunately, this is most women, I would argue, in the Black American community. They're not taught this stuff. That maybe they didn't see it growing up. Maybe they didn't have interactions with their fathers at all. Or if they were, they weren't toxic. They were toxic, or it was distant. Or maybe they've never had a chance to really observe, like, well, what does it look like for a healthy family? Like, what are the qualities that are needed to have a healthy family, a healthy relationship? Like, it's not always constant excitement. There's going to be times where you're just doing life together and it may seem more mundane or it may just seem more normal, but like not everything has to be on like 110 every single time. But there's something beautiful about consistency. Like, but if you don't grow up observing that, or if you're not introduced to that, then you do have to learn, but you may just have to learn a little bit early on. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you have women now who are they're in the phase of finding love. They're in the phase they're in the phase of their life where they want to find love, and they're still trying to figure it out because, like I said, it's the blind leading the blinder. You have, unfortunately, their elders who didn't have it to pass it down either. And so they're just bumping their head up against the wall with no understanding, just trying to make it up. And after they maybe had their phase of hybristophilia where they went for the excitement and they went for the guys that had, gave them chills every 15 seconds and got their heart broken or figured out he was just toxic, then they realize, okay, well, maybe that's not what I need for an actual stable marriage. And my thing is, you don't have to go through that. You don't have to go through 10 to 15 years of like interactions with Pookie before you realize that you don't want to marry one. You don't need to be with Pookie in order to find lasting love. Like, you don't need to do that. But again, these are things that would be imparted to you from a mom, a dad, or somebody in your family growing up. But a lot of ladies don't have this. So again, I'm saying this because it's important to understand that a lot of women have a hard time finding love because they're not properly trained on how to do it. They're not given the support on how to do it. Women are oftentimes trained more on how to be single mamas or baby mamas, or how to survive without men versus knowing how to actually get along with one. I would argue that Black American women are trained more to be baby mamas and single moms than anything else. That's what the culture is creating. But it's not sustainable and it's not healthy. So, okay. So I just wanted to go down that a little bit. Now let's go back off of where we kind of touched off. Actually, let me pull this up real quick while I'm doing this, because I was like, I'm going to get through this. Let's see if I can get through this in 20 minutes or less. That's the goal. Let's see how quick I can get through this. But anyways, okay. So today we're going to revisit this conversation that we started last week that I had to end off. But this is what I've been trying to get to like for the last 2-3 weeks now. This viral post where I was talking about the state of dating Black men in 2026. And I think this is a valid question. The state of dating Black men in 2026. A field report from a successful Black woman who refuses to struggle for love. Now, for those of you guys who were just curious about the context of this particular writer, let me actually do this real quick. This particular individual, this writer, her name is Miss Danielle Lauren. She's a down-to-earth material girl, somewhere shopping or writing, your corporate BFF. So that is her Substack. I'm assuming, I don't know if she's a PhD, but she seems like an educated Black woman, more well-to-do. And she's just talking about her dating experiences and likely the dating experiences of women in her class, in her rank. So if you guys want to check out her channel, or if you just want to check out just more about her, you can on Instagram. But I just want to give you guys a bit of a backdrop on the post that she did recently that went viral, and just the person who's actually talking about these things. I think all of that is really important. Okay. Says, yeah, your corporate BFF. You're right. And she's talking from her perspective. And then also, the perspective of a lot of women that she's interacted with who are likely in her class, and just in her, in her, just her similar space. Okay, so here it says a field report from a successful Black woman who refuses to struggle for love. So, this idea, refusing to struggle for love, that's always so interesting, because I'm just like, okay, I mean, I would, this idea of struggling for love. Let's just read what she has to say, and then we can unpack it more. Here it says, a year ago, fresh out of an 8-year relationship, I decided I was going to date intentionally, which is adorable. The last time I dated was 2013. Instagram barely mattered. Nobody was optimizing their personality for the algorithm. Men were not podcast educated. High value was not a personality trait. And the phrase soft life had not yet been weaponized. Dating in 2026 is an entirely different ecosystem. Okay. Real quickly, this is just my personal opinion. I personally do not understand any woman that can be in a relationship for 8 years and is not married. I couldn't do it. I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? After like after a year and a half, it's like, okay, what are we doing? And maybe, that could also be informed by my spiritual belief. Being a Christian, obviously, it's like there's very clear understandings on the process of courting to a certain extent, and then marriage. Like there's a lot of clarity behind it. So it's like, for me, I'm not just like sleeping around. It's like, okay, we're courting for a purpose. You're either my husband or not. So for me, like my husband, he proposed a year in. He proposed a year in. It's like, okay, this is are you my husband or not? Then we got married. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, I cannot understand somebody being in an 8-year relationship. To me, I'm like, that's a marriage at that point. That's like common law marriage, I think, in California after 7 years. So I'm like, I just can't conceptualize being with somebody for 8 years and then it not working out. I'm like, how does that even dating somebody? And like I said, it's likely informed by my own spiritual belief. But when I hear that, I'm like, wow. I'm like, why would any woman want to be in a relationship that long without there being a clear understanding of commitment and where you're going? Maybe the exception being if you met when you were like 15. Like if y'all met when you were like in high school and you're still figuring out literally everything, and then you kind of break up and you're like, okay, 20 to 23, okay, maybe that makes sense. That to me, that's a lot more feasible. But I'm like, if you're like an adult and you're dating for like 8 years, but there's not really any clarity, I personally, I just don't understand it. I don't understand that mindset. It does not make any sense to me. That's just me. I can do it. Okay. So let me see. Now here it says, and because 99.99% of my experience has been with Black men, this is a reflection on what I've observed there. Not a universal doctrine, not an attack, not a dissertation, just lived experience, conversations with other successful Black women, and patterns that are too consistent to ignore. Okay, so, and I mentioned this in my previous live. Usually, when I hear this kind of setup, when I hear somebody, especially someone who's more educated or more affluent, being like, oh, I'm not trying to talk about you. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm not trying to say you're horrible. But like when I hear that framing, I'm always expecting the next sentence or two to be like a blatant insult. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I'm not trying to say I hate you, but Black men are trash. I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to say that you suck, but Black men are horrible. I'm not trying to blame you, but it's always Jermaine's fault. Like, you know what I mean? Like when I hear that kind of framing where it's like they're kind of trying to butter you up, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm expecting the next sentence or two to be like just blatant insults. Now that's just me, you know what I mean? That's just me personally. That's just me personally, you know what I mean? Like I could be, that's just me. I'm not even saying that's just her in specific, but I'm saying like when I hear that language, particularly language from people who are more women specifically, Black women specifically who are educated, I'm like, okay, so you're setting me up for some form of an insult. Let me receive it. Now, this is interesting. You're saying corporate BFF made a video stating that her dad concluded that she's where did she see that on her Instagram? Is this a video you saw? Is this a Substack? Please let me know. I would be interested to see that. I'd be interested to see that. Okay. Okay, so but basically what she's saying is I'm not trying to attack Black men. This is just my experience and the experience of Black women that I know. Successful Black women that I know. Now I wonder how she defines success, but perhaps I think she'll get into that a little bit more further on in the post. Okay. Now here it says 1, supply, demand, and the equal of it all. Successful, educated Black men are in high demand, and they act like it. That's not shade, that's economics. When supply is limited and demand is high, the market shifts in favor of the seller. I don't think this is debatable. Desirable men are in high demand. That's not debatable. And as we've talked about in a lot of different ways, Black men particularly, they have, to a certain extent, the pick of a litter, especially Black men who are successful. They do. There's different reasons for this. We can kind of debate back and forth. Yes, there is racism. Yes, there is different prejudices they have to generally deal with. That still can happen. We've looked at this, and even if you look at dating metrics, that still can happen. But Black men, by and large, tend to be some of the most desired, even outside of white supremacy, racism, whatever. Even if you consider all that, Black men still by and large are like some of the most desired across race. If you look at the interracial marriage rate, Black men versus Black women, Black men have a higher interracial marriage rate. Black men can go abroad and have a lot more success with other races of women, right? And there's reasons for this, but what I'm just saying is ultimately she is right. Black men, particularly Black men who may be considered high value, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, even the ones who aren't high value, they just look the part. You know what I mean? Like, by and large, yes, there is a level of desirability. Now, some of y'all may say, okay, it's not true love or desirability because some of it can be as fetishizing things. Some it could be more like women who just want to have a little Black boy phase. But nevertheless, Black men are desired by other races of women. They are. And that's what she's speaking to. Okay, here it says, now let's flip it. Successful, educated Black women, we are not rare. So this is where I actually challenge her. We are statistically overperforming in education. We are building businesses. We are buying homes. We are healing. We are therapized. We are evolving. And here's the inconvenient part. We are harder to control. So this is where I think things start to kind of devolve into narrative, but not the actual truth. And this is not to downplay her own success and the success that she's been able to achieve with her friends. But the reality is successful Black women, they actually are rare. And if by success she's assuming, if she's meaning education, which it seems as if she is because she brings it up, that's still a rarity. So let's go back, we can go back real quickly and let's see, educational attainment, is it here? Let's go back real quick and review just some basic stats to actually try to clarify what she's saying with what's going on today. So if by success she is meaning educational attainment and ultimately the ability of a Black woman to get along with this current system, let's see what she has to say. Now, so if we look at educational attainment, because this is kind of what she used as one of the first barometers of success. When we look at educational attainment, yes, Black women by and large do tend to have more educations than Black men. And honestly, this trend is pretty consistent across all races. To my understanding, most, if not all races, have women who are in college more often than men. Now, this might be for, this is another conversation, but some of this I think could be connected to the feminization of education. But nevertheless, listen, there being more women in college than men is a general trend that you see cross-culturally. But when we actually break this down on, okay, so who's getting college degrees and who's not, we see, okay, 9% of Black women have graduate or professional degrees, 6% of Black men. So that's about 3% off. Yes, Black women do have more degrees when you talk about graduate or professional degrees, but it's only about a 3% difference, right? Now, here it says 14% of Black women have bachelor's degrees compared to 12% of Black men. So again, the number is higher, but it's only off by, a small percentage. Now, here it says associate's degree, 10% have an associate's degree versus 7% have an associate's degree of men. So you basically see across the board, yes, Black women, they do have more educational attainment than Black men, but it's off by about a percentage or two. But here's the primary point. If by success we are defining educational attainment, it's still a minority of Black women who actually receive higher education. Because listen, here it says some college, no degree. These are Black women who started college, didn't finish. They don't have a degree. Associate's degree, those are Black women and they got an AA, but that's not really considered, I don't think that's really considered higher. That's not like higher education. An AA can barely get you anything, honestly, in a corporate world. Honestly, AA is not getting you much. So really, where you're really talking is in the bachelor's degree realm, the realm of bachelor's degree and professional degree. And that's what, 24%. And now granted, these stats were pulled about 9 or so years ago. So these stats are a little bit old. But with the changing economy, with inflation going up and the cost of education going up, I think it's safe to assume that these numbers have become even more severe. You know what I mean? So, but the reason I'm saying that is because really, she's talking about Black women are not rare, successful Black women are not rare. If she's measuring that by educational attainment, they actually are. You're really only talking about 24% of Black women who have higher education. No, 23%. Sorry, you're talking really only about 23% of Black women who have higher education. 23. That means 3 out of 4 Black women don't. 3 out of 4 Black women do not have higher education. That's what that means. That means the majority of Black women in America do not have higher education. That means the majority of Black women do not live up to the standard that she's setting as far as success. So the reason I'm saying that is because, as we continue to go throughout this idea, this post that got all kinds of likes and virality, whatever, the framing already I'm seeing is a bit off. Because her experience and the experience of women that she's going to talk about are a minority of a minority. Only about 1 in 4, actually a little less, but only about 1 in 4 Black women are in this category of what she's referring to. And we're not even taking into consideration the amount of debt that they had to accrue to get there. And we're also not taking into consideration the amount of women who recently have lost jobs. Black women specifically. We know that Black women who were disproportionately hit by unemployment over the last year or so. So it's important to note that this framing that she set up, while it might feel true in her own particular circle, in her own niche, it is not true across the board. Successful Black women, and by successful, she means college educated Black women who finished education, are still a minority. Okay? All right. Okay. So let's move on, you guys. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks to you so much for the 2. The game changer. It says California don't have common law. Okay. That's that is good to know. I mean, I've never looked into it. I never looked into it, game changer. And so you're probably right. I mean, I just got married, so it didn't really bother me either way. But yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the rest of the post. I just wanted to hop real briefly into some of the stats because what she was saying, as we can see, is not in alignment with what the numbers are actually showing. Okay, so let's go back to the post. This whole idea of Black women being, successful, educated, therapied up, all those things. Okay. It says we're building businesses, we're buying homes, we are healing, we are therapized, we are evolving. So again, all of these things, they are likely true perhaps in her small circle of success, in her small circle of whatever. And this is no shade to her. But this is not a general reality. Home ownership across the board for all races has gone significantly down. You know what I mean? Homelessness and the van life journey has skyrocketed. I mean, y'all have seen the amount of homeless, by choice van life journeys that I've covered off on my channel. Those of you guys who've been following me for some months now. So, I mean, with again the change of the economy and with inflation and things like that, which has disproportionately impacted women, this is not true collectively. This might be true for a small select group of Black women. Shout out to them. This is not a general rule. So the reason I'm saying that is because everything that she's saying already out the gate is set and based upon a false paradigm. It's based upon a paradigm or criteria that actually does not exist. Successful, educated Black women are actually where Black women who are outperforming in home ownership and businesses. And by businesses, Kiki's Nails, because a lot of women will talk about, Black women start businesses the most. They do start businesses at a higher rate. But okay, how many of them are like solopreneurs, such as like Kiki's Nails? Okay, shout out to Kiki for her nails. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But how many of them are Kiki's Nails and Lele's Braids? You know what I mean? How many are them versus like, okay, you got seed funding and now you have a staff of 5 that you're starting with, you're incubating, you have a board, you have people that you are actually following up with, people who are invested in your business, and then now you're growing. That's one of the conversations. The majority of the businesses that Black women start, are solo. Oh, they're like solo. They're like, it's like her. You know what I mean? It's one person. It's not employing multiple people. And again, I'm not trying to undermine entrepreneurship among Black women. I didn't see anything wrong with that, but I'm saying we have to look at these things in context, because it can be really easy to kind of get in our high horse based upon things that are actually not true. But then when you actually start to kind of dig a little bit more deeply into what's being said, it's like, oh, let's actually be a lot more humble with this. We're actually not higher. We're not, out higher or out competing or whatever in the way that we may think. Okay. Okay, so it says, here's the inconvenient part. We are harder to control. Okay, I don't know who's trying to control you, but okay. Here's the thing about it. Having standards as a man, or just in general in dating, is not control. It's not control. It's just like, this is my standard. You live up to it. You do not live up to it. Here it says, you can't dangle money over us if we make our own. You can't gaslight us if we've already unpacked our trauma in therapy. You can't tell us to be more feminine when we know exactly who we are. Dating a successful Black woman is not hard work. It is reflective work. And not everybody wants to look in the mirror. So again, notice how she is defining successful based upon her educational attainment and ultimately her ability to socially or economically climb. Everything that she defined as success was based upon a woman's ability to make money. And I have no problem with that. I see nothing wrong with a woman's ability to make money. I think she should. I encourage all women to have skills. I think it's good to have a skill, even if you are a stay-at-home housewife or whatever, and you end up wanting to just spend all your time. I think it's just still good to have I think it's still healthy for a woman to have a skill or have a passion that she's something that she's into. I think that that's important. So I'm not opposed to that. But what I'm saying is, notice the way that she defines successful. It has everything to do with her ability to pay bills, or basically, her ability to maintain herself economically. But the problem is, the conversation that we're talking about is about romance. It's about dating and relationships. The context of this whole conversation is romance. It's Black men and Black women getting together. It's love. So it's interesting that she's talking about, oh, I'm successful because I have, all these cars and stuff, but it's like, wait, but you're talking about love. And the reason I'm calling that out is because Black women, a lot of times when they have education, when they have money, they think that somehow that makes them more desirable in the dating market. They think that somehow that makes them more desirable by men, and it doesn't. Men don't care at all. If you have a graduate degree, or if you have an A versus a GED, a lot of men don't care if you're unattractive to them. Now, they might care if you have a graduate degree, if you look good in your cap and gown. You know what I mean? If you are attractive while you're holding that diploma, okay, then they're going to care. But what I'm saying is, like, you as a educated woman, having a degree, having a condo, being therapy, whatever, a lot of men, that doesn't like inherently turn men on. Men are not inherently turned on by a woman who can pay her bills or has a car or a condo. And so the problem with this framing is, like, she's positioning herself as successful and desirable on the dating market because of her money. And it's as if, like, there's not an understanding that men don't really care about your money. Like, they're not turned on by that. Now, there are in some instances, like, because of the economy, there are more men now who may just want a woman to be able to pay her, pull her own weight financially. So it's like they don't want to feel like they're being taken advantage of. But what I'm saying is, like, a woman having a degree or having a job does not inherently make her more desirable to men. That's the heart, and that's the thing that women, like, it's like they don't get it. We saw this with Kevin Samuels, who was like, I'm a PhD. We've seen this over and over again with some of these different dating shows, and it's like ladies either they don't understand or they refuse to listen. Yeah, you said a woman's ability to make money is attractive. Exactly, the pimps. But, like, to the kind of men that she's likely desiring, to the kind of men that ladies collectively say that they desire, these men don't care about your money. They care about how good you look to them and how well of a feminine counterpart are you. Okay, it's great that you can close a sale. Do you know how to cook a meal? Okay, it's great that you just acquired your second condo. Do you look good in heels? Okay, it's great that maybe you can speak Latin. Are you nice? Are you cooperative? You know what I mean? Like these skills that you may learn in school, they don't automatically translate into your ability to be a good girlfriend, wife, any of that stuff. And so as I'm reading this, and she puts, okay, be more feminine, it's really what I'm thinking is, if you are a woman who led with your career in dating and mating, and you're leading with your career with, the kind of straight alpha, high value men, yeah, they're going to be like, be more feminine, because they're not trying to date their coworker. They don't want to feel like they're dating a coworker or a dude. They want to date somebody that has feminine qualities. But if, like, you kind of have a chip on your shoulder and you're like, oh, I went to an Ivy League school, or this and that, then they're going to be like, bro, can you just, like, be a woman? Like, I'm not trying to date a professor. I'm not trying to date, like I said, a boss babe. I want to date a woman. I want to be with a woman. And so sometimes I think Black ladies, educated, all of that, I think we don't understand. Like, we may get in our feels when you hear, okay, be more feminine. We may get offended by that, thinking like people are trying to control us. But it's like, no, you don't understand that, like, you're leading with an aspect of yourself that is not necessarily what men are looking for. And you do want to also understand what men are looking for if you're dating. And it's not even about having to, like, change yourself. It's not even about having to, like, be what you're not. But it's just about being a woman. You know what I mean? It's just about being in your feminine. But I don't know, for some reason that, like I said, there's this disconnect because women are attracted to men who have degrees and multiple condos and houses and all this kind of different stuff because women are attracted to that. They think men are, and they're not. And for some reason in our brains as women, and some reason as especially as like educated women, it's almost seen as offensive to tell an educated woman that you still may have to modify your behavior in a way so that a man will be able to connect with you. Some are just not willing to do it. They're not willing to do it at all. You know what I mean? So I'm reading this. Okay, so here it says, dating a successful Black woman is not hard work, it's reflective work. She's defining successful as a Black woman who has a degree. My thing is, you having a degree doesn't mean that you're successful in the realm of dating and mating. You might be successful in the realm of being able to get a corporate job, but in the realm of dating and mating, that does not equate to success as a woman. And that's what a lot of ladies don't like to hear. They don't like to hear, like, that may be offensive. But it's like if you haven't nurtured those feminine qualities that actually are required in order to get along with a man, then you're not going to get it. Like that's kind of like a straight man being like, "Oh, you know what? Well, I do my eyebrows," or like, "Oh man, my nails are dead," or I don't know, like my beard is really moisturized. You know what I mean? Like if you just had like straight men going online and like talking about, "Oh, I'm a successful man. I'm high value because I have a soft beard." Or I'm high value because my skin is glistening, or I'm high value because I iron my shirt. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, if I'm trying to think of like a male equivalent, like a straight man being like, "Oh, I'm high value because I know how to do a woman's makeup. I know how to beat my girl's face. I mean, well, not like physically, you know what I mean? Like beat her face with makeup, not like DV. I said that wrong, but you know what I mean? Like, I would know how to do my girl's makeup." Like women are gonna look at that and being like, "Bro, you're not high value because you know how to do makeup. You're not high value because your beard is soft." Like those are nice things, I think, but like that's not necessarily gonna make a woman attractive. Like a straight heterosexual man going online and trying to position himself as a desirable man because he knows how to do makeup, or because he has a soft beard, or because I don't know, like his shoes matches his shirt. Like women would be like, "Okay, that's whatever, but what's your money like though, bro?" You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is it's kind of like the same way when women go online and say that they're high value, but then they start leading with things that men don't care about. Like most women don't care that a man goes and gets his eyebrows waxed. Like that's not turning them on. Knowing that their man that they're interested in dating gets their eyebrows waxed is not really turning them on. Yeah, I know how to twist women's dreads. A man being like, "Oh, I'm high value because I know how to twist a woman's dreads." "Oh, I'm high value because I know how to sew my girl's weave-in." Woman would be like, "Bro, like that doesn't make you high value. That actually makes you gay, probably." You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to draw an equivalent. I'm trying to make women understand what it's like for men when women lead with their degrees. Dudes are like, "Okay, that's cool, but that doesn't do anything for them." Right. Yeah, you said like a man bragging about his video. "I'm a high value man because I don't even know what games are. What is it like? Madden, because I'm a Madden king. I'm a high value man because I'm a Madden king." You know what I mean? And you're right. You said I literally said no man ever. Right. Said no man ever. But I'm just trying to use it as an example of like the same way a woman would be like, "Bro, I don't care. Does nothing for me," is the exact same way. It's literally the exact same way a man would be like, "Bro, I don't care that you have a PhD. That does nothing for me. How do you look? Are you nice?" Oh, Mr. Super Chat. Okay. Oh, here it says, "Why do Black women have therapy and white women have gym?" Well, here's the thing I know about. See, white women will do both. White women will do both. They'll do their therapy. They'll go to the gym too. They'll be pressed about it. Right. Right. I'm trying to paint an equivalent on how like unrelatable that is. Okay. Because a lot of men, especially the ones who feel like they are the prize, want ease. They want admiration without accountability. They want to be coddled, affirmed, mothered. They want a woman who adjusts to them. Not one who requires them to grow. And when you are used to being scarce, you start behaving like you were irreplaceable. So she's saying that the men that she's with have standards that she's not particularly happy about. She says they want to be coddled, affirmed, mothered. Okay, what I'm wondering is, okay, if what she's considering coddled, affirmed, and mothered is just being feminine, wanting someone who is supportive, wanting someone who is encouraging, wanting someone who can, support his vision. Like these are feminine qualities, but the way that she's expressing it as if it's something that's negative. And it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. But I'm like, this is where when I start to read through these things, I'm like, is the issue really that you're dealing with immature men, or is it that there's not an understanding of the masculine and feminine exchange? Because a feminine woman is going to encourage. A feminine woman is going to be inspirational, is going to inspire. A feminine woman is going to uplift. It's not to say that it's not saying that she doesn't, she'll never have pushback or she'll never have insight. It's not that, but I'm just saying the nature of a woman that a lot of men will maybe be attracted to in this capacity is going to be one that's feminine. Feminine qualities are naturally that. They're naturally nurturing. So if you kind of have this whole like, oh, I'm not doing all that for you, I ain't doing that, I'm not doing that. Okay, you're not obligated to. But then the man that you're with may not want to be with you either. I mean, and then it says you start behaving like you're irreplaceable. So this idea of like these high value black men who are scarce behave in a way as if it almost is positioning this idea as if they're too egotistical, basically. Okay, here it says the nostalgia trap. There's a growing romanticization of our grandparents' era. I just want a traditional woman. I want someone feminine. I'm old fashioned. The problem is not tradition. The problem is selective memory. That era looks stable from the outside. Two-parent households, clear gender roles, defined structure. But for many women in that generation, it also meant enduring cheating, abuse, financial dependence, and silence. It meant staying because you had no options. We do not want to return to a time when we had fewer rights and fewer exits. So this is, again, where I am starting to call BS. Because again, it's all being told from the lens of the woman. Second of all, it's just assuming that those relationships were inherently abusive, inherently misogynistic, and that it was all one-sided. It's completely told from the feminist lens. But here's something else that I think I find problematic. So this whole, I want a traditional woman, I want someone feminine, I'm old-fashioned. The reason I don't necessarily see a problem with that is because the expectations that are put on a lot of these men is for them to still be traditional. So if your expectation is that this man has to pay, he has to be able to, essentially be at or be above my level, treat me like a princess, treat me beautiful, treat me, if the expectation are all those things, if there's still very traditional expectations of a man, that is not it's not unreasonable that he would therefore have expectations of a woman. And then they're saying that era looks stable from the outside, two-parent households, clear gender roles. So and here, this feminist framing, right, where it's like, oh, it looks stable, but inwardly, okay, black marriages everyone was being beat up and the black women were being oppressed. Okay, so if that's true, then why are you trying to get with a black man? What's even the point? If your understanding of black love and black marriage and relationships is that it was inherently abusive in those kind of contexts, why even deal with black men? So to me, that's where I'm kind of like, I look at this stuff and I'm like, no, there's a problem here, in my opinion, because there's still a desire for patriarchal standards. There's still the demand for patriarchal standards on the man's part. But then when the man is therefore requiring a patriarchal or feminine reciprocation, then there's a problem about it. Then they're like, oh, well, no, we don't want to do that because that's oppressive. And that's where I think there's a big disconnect. Okay, I'm gonna try to get through this. Says, and yet I've noticed many Black men are either apolitical, agnostic to social issues, or quietly conservative in ways that directly impacts women's autonomy. There's a longing for simpler times without acknowledgement of who those times were simple for. That's just not true. I mean, Black men, more than any other race of men, are still the most politically aligned with women. To act as if Black men are just sitting on their hands and are not the most liberal, I think is very, very, I think that's disingenuous, honestly. Now she might be running into Black men who are pushing back against anti-Black misandry that is really prevalent in the left. We see that. There are some Black men who actually are conservative or lean conservative simply because they hate baby mama culture and simply because they hate that their tax dollars are going to women that they believe are taking advantage of the system. Like there are some Black men that I've noticed who actively vote Republican, not even because they like the Republican Party, because they're just like, F the Democrats, and I don't want to give my money to Keisha. Like literally that. Like you mean there's all kind of different stuff. But even yet and still, most Black men are politically aligned with Black women. Most Black men still vote for the Democrats. Most Black men have no problem with Black female leadership. Like we see that all the time in the polls. So this idea that Black men are like some like MAGA, hat Trump supporting white supremacists and blackface is almost as if she's promoting that. To me, that's kind of how I'm reading it to a little bit. It's just not true. It's just simply not true. And it says nostalgia is easy when history was kind to you. It is less charming when it wasn't. And that to me is also just like, when was history ever kind to Black men ever? This whole idea of like Black men looking back to the 50s and 60s or whatever through a lens of nostalgia is like, bro, like, do you understand Black history? Black men were like the primary targets of institutional racism and terrorism. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, if you look at the unalivings, if you will, if you look at the amount of people who were put in prison, Black men were the primary target of the state. There is no romanticizing the past, really. There is no romanticizing like, oh man, Black men had it so easy in the 50s and 60s. What? What are you talking about? That's not true. There was racial terrorism everywhere. So I'm like, I don't understand this framing. I don't know who she's talking to or who she's met with, but I don't know any Black man who was like, yeah, I just wish we were back in the 50s and 60s where we were running for election. I don't understand this. I'm pro-Black, I'm anti-struggle. Here it says, this is the part that makes people uncomfortable. As Black people, so much of our collective achievement has come through struggle, survival, endurance, resistance. We've been taught that if it costs you something, it's valuable. If it hurts, it's meaningful. But somewhere along the way, that logic bled into love. We normalized chaos as chemistry. We labeled instability as passion. We rebranded inconsistency as he's just figuring it out. And if she stays, she's loyal, she's a ride or die. So this is where I feel like the whole narrative falls apart. Because the first few posts, she's talking about how Black men collectively, basically, high value Black men, they are in high demand and they're a bit prideful, essentially, or they're a bit egotistical, and they almost have standards that seem, they have standards that she's not willing to really abide by. That's really what I'm kind of gathering. But notice the context is these are high value Black men who are successful, who are more rare, which she talks about within, I think, the first and second slide, and therefore of high demand. Now she's saying these same successful Black men, she's alluding to the fact that they are chaotic, that they are unstable, and that they're inconsistent. And the thing about it is, I'm like, okay, so if you're with a high value Black man, he's not going to be unstable. He's not going to be, kind of confused figuring these things out. She's talking about, oh, you're a ride or die right figuring things out. Like, that's not a high value Black man. You're talking maybe more about a man that doesn't have his stuff together. But the high value Black man that you alluded to, like in the first slide or two, they know what they're doing. They may not have the whole picture, but they have a vision and they have a plan. And they have something they're working towards, which is why they're very specific about the things that they want. So notice how she's punching up in high value Black men, but then now when she's describing the interactions, it doesn't sound like she's talking about high value Black men. It sounds like she's dealing more with men who ain't got their stuff together. Because she's like, okay, chaos, huh? Okay, instability, what? Okay, inconsistency, huh? But the men you just talked about before were very clear about what they want. You just said you didn't want to live up to it. So what is it? Is it that you're with men who have unrealistic expectations that you don't want? Or is it that you're with men who are inconsistent and don't have their life together? Which is it? So that's why I'm just like, I'm reading this and I'm just like, bro, this is starting to really fall apart to me, because the kind of men that you're describing as your own experience are not consistent with the high value Black men that you're trying to attack. And that leads me to believe that she's maybe had more interactions with like the kind of the people that Ari Lennox was honest about, where she's like, man, I feel like I'm attracted to toxic men who pretty much don't have their life together. I'm wondering how many of these experiences that she's filtering through that lens. Because we all know plenty of Black women, educated Black women, high performing Black women, who's sitting down there laying down with Pookie. We've all seen it. We've all seen it. Here it says, but I do not want to endure love. I want to rest in it. I want love to regulate my nervous system, not fry it. I want it to be a refuge from the world, not another battleground. I want consistency without confusion, affection without anxiety, commitment without coercion. Struggle built our ancestors. It does not need to be the down payment for my marriage. Okay. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, she just, okay, that's what you want. I'm like, this to me, I'm just like, you want to be loved. Okay. Love itself and marriage itself, there is a level of, there's always going to be, I don't want to say level of chaos, but there's always going to be a level of friction. Anytime two people are coming together and building a life together, like it's not going to always be perfect. When you're learning how to compromise, there's going to be friction, but it doesn't mean that it has to be chaotic or anxious. But this idea that working through challenges is struggle love to me is kind of like a problem, because I'm like, yeah, even the most healthy relationships are still going to have friction at some point. But just because you're experiencing friction doesn't always mean that it's struggle love. We need to be more clear and define struggle love versus like healthy conflict. It says, now let me say this clearly, not all Black men, but when the same themes show up in my life and in the lives of hundreds of successful Black women I speak to, it stops feeling random. We want to marry Black men. We want beautiful Black families. We want cultural alignment and shared experience, but not in change for chaos. See, now the reason I wanted to share the examples that I did earlier is because how many examples that I showed you from mainstream pop culture actually cultivate marriage, wife culture? How many of them? I sat there and showed you a video from Tisha Campbell, who's almost 60, where she's talking about, I'm just still trying to figure out how to love myself. I've never been loved. Zero understanding of how to keep a family together. Everything from, popular examples from bell hooks, feminists like her, education, talking about how marriage is patriarchal oppression, how more traditional gender roles is patriarchal oppression. Like, we want things that we haven't been trained and cultivated to actually have. This is what I'm essentially trying to say. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. You have Black women who want it, who desire it, but have no understanding and no willingness to actually go through the process sometimes to make themselves open to it, in my opinion. And that's a big problem, because it's like, we don't exist in a wife culture. We don't. So if you want to be a wife, you can be, but you're likely going to have to address some of the beliefs that you grew up hearing. Because best believe, honey, it's not cultivating the ability for you to be able to maintain a relationship. You going to college and getting an education has nothing to do with your ability to actually maintain a happy and healthy marriage. It does not. It doesn't. It does not. So here she's positioning as if, oh, Black women want marriage. We want it, but we don't want it with chaos. And the context is that all Black women are getting in these interactions with Black men is chaos. That's kind of what's being explicitly said. And so, again, it's Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. It's Black men's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault, right? But the way that she's positioning it, you notice how she started off with, okay, black, high value black men, they have these standards, they have these standards and things that we're not willing to live up to. But then she kind of transitioned into, oh, okay, but they're chaotic and they're all over the place and they want, they're struggling and they want us to struggle with them. And I'm just like, I don't think you're even being fully upfront about the kind of black men that you're dealing with. Because the kind of men that you described in the first section of the post does not reflect the kind of black men that you say you've actually interacted with. Is the problem black men collectively, or is the problem the kind of black men that perhaps you've been that, in retrospect, there were some men that I looked past who were good that I was bored by, but now they have happy relationships. And the men that I engaged who were exciting were hella toxic. And I'm just wondering if this lady herself also fell into that same cycle. I'm not saying that there aren't black men out there who have issues. Yes, like I said, I mean, the black American culture, period, is not a family, a marriage producing culture. It doesn't produce wives, it doesn't produce husbands by and large. However, with that said, black men still are more married more than black women, and black men are able to successfully marry out more than black women. What is that showing? To me, that's showing that perhaps black men are not as bad or as horrible as black women are thinking. Perhaps there's also issues and challenges that black women themselves also have to deal with. Because if they were so horrible and so unmarriageable and so unworthy, then I'm like, I don't think anybody would be with them. Nobody would want to date and marry them. But you have these men who are able to successfully date and marry out. I'm not saying it's all perfect. I'm not saying that they're all perfect. But what I'm saying is, like, I think we have to expand the narrative. The narrative cannot always be it's Jermaine's fault. If the narrative continues to be it's Jermaine's fault and nobody's ever loved me properly, then there's never any ability for self-reflection. Here it says, and here's a shift that feels seismic. Many successful black women are experiencing peaceful solitude for the first time in their lives. How many decades have they been saying this now? They're talking about being at peace, but it's like, you're clearly not at peace if, like, every other month I'm hearing a black woman go online, going out of her way to insult black men. You're not at peace. You're lying. If you were truly at peace, we wouldn't hear from you. You'd be quietly enjoying your peace. You wouldn't be doing whole think pieces with thousands of likes. You wouldn't be doing part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You wouldn't be having entire blogs dedicated to the challenges of black women in dating if you're really at peace. That's a lie. I don't believe it. This is why I continue to share videos of black women going online crashing out about being single. Not because I'm happy to see women sad to be single. And not because I don't necessarily believe, I believe there are people who actually can be single and happy. Men and women. I do believe that can happen. But I think a lot of these women are calling cap, because if you're saying you're at peace, but every 15 seconds a black man is in your mouth, you're constantly judging who black men are dating, or talking about them being colorist, or, like I said, you're going out of their way to talk about the ways in which they're inefficient. You're not at peace, in my opinion. Okay. We grew up in homes marked by scarcity, instability, or survival mode. Now we have built quiet apartments, curated routines, stable incomes, regulated nervous systems. Our homes are no longer chaotic; they are sanctuaries. And when you have fought to build peace, you do not invite disturbance casually. So she just said the quiet part out loud. We were not raised in families to learn how to be wives. We were raised in survival mode. Now that we have a little nice apartment with a stable income, and now that we took a little therapy that taught us how to not always live from a place of scarcity, we feel better. But just because now, okay, you went through some therapy and learned that you don't have to be in fear that you're not going to know your next meal is from, but you're a little bit more stable, still doesn't mean that you have the qualities and the capacity to know how to be a wife. That means nothing. So she said the quiet part out loud. Basically, we wasn't raised on how to be wives. Now we got an apartment, compare our bills, and we're not, in survival mode all the time, but we still don't know how to be wives. Because if you were in survival mode, literally for always and forever, then it's like, at what point were these things imparted to you? She's saying the quiet part out loud. But trying to make it, and notice again the framing. The framing in this is that Black women are the moral authority. That's what I'm saying. A lot of the framing around these things is that Black women are the moral authority, that they are the moral standard, and that Black men, or that men collectively, are not on the same level morally as women. Our peace has become a fortress. Only men who add to the stability get access. That requires consistency, emotional maturity, effort, generosity, leadership that is protective, not performative. So see, this is what I call the BS. Y'all say I want leadership, but then when a man wants to lead, then you're saying that he's patriarchal, that he's controlling, that he's all these different things. Y'all don't want. A lot of these ladies don't want leadership. They're afraid of it. They're afraid of being controlled. They grew up in survival mode where they didn't feel like they were in control. Now they feel like they're in control because they have a nice little corporate job. But as soon as they're with a man who has some standards and who maybe have a vision or a way of doing things that's different than you, then you're mad and you feel like he's controlling you when he's actually trying to give you leadership. You want to be protected, but you don't want to receive the guidance that a man's going to have to give to protect you. A lot of the stuff, they don't, and that's what I'm saying, we don't understand. This stuff is cultural. Because in some men, especially those used to being in demand, prefer easier options. Women they can impress with money. Women they can intimidate. Women who will tolerate misalignment for proximity to status. See, and this is the subtle shade. It's a way of looking at women who have been able to find successful relationships with high value men, and say, oh, they're only in relationships because she's basically making herself smaller. It's this whole idea of just like, again, you create yourself as like the moral hierarchy, the moral authority, as if like a woman who was in a relationship with a successful man is only in that because she has to make herself smaller. Is only in that relationship because she doesn't mind being controlled. She doesn't mind being abused. And it's like, no, she might actually just be a good fit for him. Maybe she's truly resting in her feminine, and she may have her own degree. She may have her own career. She may have her own thing that she does, but she and him know how to work together. He doesn't feel like he's dating a dude. He doesn't feel like he's constantly at war at home. He doesn't feel like he's constantly having to like debate everything. He doesn't feel like his masculinity is always being undermined. But some ladies, they don't understand that. And so because they don't understand that, they're going to look at a woman who's with a man and happy, or they're functional and be like, oh, that's because she's making herself smaller. Oh, that's because he must be abusing her, or he must be doing something. They're like, there must be something wrong for them to be together. There's not a reality in which a woman and a man, a Black woman and a Black man can be together and be happy, and she's not being abused. It's like a very subtle shade. It's a very subtle shade for those women who have been able to find success. And honestly, I think it's because these ladies don't know how to find success. They don't understand the ways in which they can still undermine men and still undermine relationships. But instead of acknowledging that, then it's like, oh no, it's Jermaine's fault. And it's like, ma'am, you just sat there and said a few slides before that you grew up in survival mode. And now because you got a little corporate job and you have a nice apartment, okay, and you're not stressed out about where your next meal is coming from, your nervous system is regulated, that means now you think you're a wife. No, it doesn't work like that. There's still things that you have to learn. And like, shout out to you for, getting out of that survival mode. That's not to undermine the progress you've been able to make, but there's still other things that you might need to learn to do. But instead of doing that, now you have to just like blame men when you are having challenges. And it's like, no. At least Ari Lennox was just like, okay, I think I still have some healing to do. That might be in me. That might be a more healthier approach. Okay, so Black women opt out entirely. Some date outside their race. Some, like me, are at least considering dating outside the country. That's going to work out well. Because when you live in an unaffordable, high-stress society, it distorts everything, including relationships. Scarcity breeds ego. Financial pressures magnifies power struggles. And suddenly, successful becomes a relative term depending on the market you're in. More options shift power. And when women have power and choice, we are less likely to settle for someone who meets 6 out of 10 requirements and calls it destiny. Listen, be a passport sis. I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying, I'm like, are these women going to be okay going to these other countries, these other developing nations, where they may find a man that they find sexually attracted to, but now you're going to have to pay the bill? How you going to feel about that? How you going to feel about it? This is not bitterness. When I see women say this stuff all the time, I'm just like, oh, I'm not mad. I'm like, girl, you hella mad. I'm not bitter, girl. Get out. Get out of here. Listen, this is not bitterness, it's analysis. This is not anti-black men, it's anti-dysfunction. What the hell? Listen, I'm just like, this is the whole gaslighting stuff that we do. This is, to me, is like the nasty nice stuff. Like, I'm not trying to talk about black men, but black men are trash. I'm not trying to say that, you should blame black men, but it's always black men's fault. It's always your main's fault. I'm not trying to say you're horrible, but you suck. It's like, ma'am. Just, I am pro black, I am pro love, I am pro family. I'm just no longer pro chaos. It's like, girl, maybe this is what happens when black women heal, when we get quiet, when we taste stability and realize we like it. Maybe the real revolution is not finding a man. Maybe it's refusing to abandon ourselves to keep one. This concludes my sociological field report. I will continue gathering data. I'm like, girl, to me, I'm like, okay. So this, to me, this got cringier and cringier. Because it's always your main's fault. I wish I heard just a little bit of self-reflection. Just a little bit. Like, just even a little bit. But basically what you're saying is there are no men on your level, on your socioeconomic level, that you can connect with. It is to say that you didn't got to a certain point because you didn't healed and therapied up and got a little stable place because you grew up in survival mode. But all these men that are on your level are not choosing you. But it's their fault. I mean, to me, I see this stuff and I'm like, we don't have any, there's no self-reflection. I am not sitting here and saying that all black men are perfect. I don't think any of you guys who are listening to me would be like, oh, black men are perfect and do no wrong. Obviously not. I challenge the inability for there to be even just a monocle, just even a small percentage of self-reflection. Even a small percentage. A small percentage. If the narrative is always that it's Jermaine's fault, meanwhile, Jermaine is still getting married, meanwhile, the Jermaine in your class is getting with other races of women, in some instances, still other black women. And if your idea of the why they're able to find love is because they're getting with women who are willing to and somehow disrespect themselves, if the common denominator in all these failed relationships is you, is there not at least a consideration that there still might be something in you? And I'm saying this more from a general standpoint. Is there not at least a consideration that there still might be something in you that needs to heal? That's all I'm saying. It's just, to me, it's the lack of self-reflection that's really problematic. The lack of self-reflection, the inability to be like, oh, okay, so why can't I? Just because you went to therapy and were able to get out of a survival mode when it comes to finances does not mean that you still have learned the ability and have a healthy understanding of how to even get along with a man and how to even respect a man. Start there. Because nothing about what she said here shows any moniker of respect. And if for no other reason, that's going to undermine your ability as a woman. If you don't respect the men that you're attracted to, you're not going to be able to get along with them. Respect is essential to men. It's like women really need to feel loved. Men need to feel respected. They need to feel respected. And there's nothing about any of their support that shows even a modicum of respect for men. Even a small iota, even a small, black men specifically. This is total and complete disrespect under the lens of, this is just my experience. And that's fine. I mean, you can have your experience. But what I'm saying is that if that's the energy that you're bringing into any of your relationships and interactions, it is not surprising to me that it hasn't translated into anything good or healthy. Respect is essential. It is essential. It doesn't mean that you have to always understand or agree, but that is very important. So I thought this was interesting. I mean, she goes into other posts. I'm gonna have to wrap this up though, because it's getting late. But I'm glad we were able to get through. I'm glad we were able to get through this post. If you look through some of the comments, you're gonna see women who agree. I agree. It's always your main fault. It's always your main fault. It's always your main fault. Okay, fine. Let's just assume it's you. Let's assume we can blame Jermaine. Y'all mean to tell me that Keisha ain't also got things to work on? I just started off the live with a whole bunch of different examples on how and why Black women are not prepared for marriage. So if we can argue that Black men are not prepared for marriage for whatever reason, they're not prepared for relationships, fine. We have to also be an acknowledgement that it's the same way for Black women because they grew up in the same families, in the same households, under the same training. And just because he was able to get you a little degree, just because he was able to get you a little piece of paper, and you work in a little nice corporate office, does not translate into your ability to actually be in a healthy relationship. Does not translate in your ability to be able to nurture a family. There is no correlation. Just because you can speak, I don't know, you can speak Spanish or you can balance a spreadsheet. Okay, just because you know how to run a marketing meeting does not know you know how to be a wife. Doesn't mean you have any understanding on how to be a man's support or how to work together with a man in any capacity that's healthy for both of y'all. It means nothing. Your educational achievement does not equate in any way, shape, or form to your ability to be a good and functional partner, wife, none of that. And that's what's missing from this. Because like I said, her whole framing of successful was a woman's ability to pay her bills. She mentioned nothing that had anything to do with a relationship interaction quality, none of the soft skills, none of the intangible things that are essential to a relationship. She mentioned none of it. All she mentioned was, I got my bills paid and I went to therapy. Again, means nothing. If you went to a therapist, let's say you went to a therapist, she was single, she feminist, she don't like men, that's not translating to your ability to be a wife. And this is not translating. So that's what I'm saying. These kind of different things where you see women go and blame Jermaine. It's like, okay, let's just assume everything you said about Jermaine is true. Just for the sake of the argument, let us just assume everything you said about Jermaine is true. Are you really going to sit here and tell me that Keisha still ain't got things to work on? You just sat here and acknowledged that you grew up in a survival mode. We just sat here and looked at countless examples of how Black women grow up in societies that tell them that marriage is trash, that marriage is patriarchal oppression, that covenant commitment with a man is oppression, is basically going to put them in a scenario where they're going to be abused. We just saw countless Black women talk about how men aren't good enough. Even when they're on their level, they're not good enough. We just sat here and looked at examples of Black women who are elders sit there and tell you how they don't have the ability to impart anything related to marriage and family. So you grew up in a culture, not only of survival mode, you grew up in a culture where you weren't trained or taught, and you had zero examples in how to even be a functional partner, girlfriend, let alone wife. You had zero examples of that. But you think that now, because you have a degree, a piece of paper, and because you had a therapy session or two, now all of a sudden you're the moral hierarchy? Now all of a sudden you're the moral authority? It doesn't work like that. There's brokenness on both sides. On both sides. That's what I'm saying. And I think an inability to acknowledge that is also a big, big reason so many Black women struggle. My thing is, if you want to actually be married and have a successful relationship, you're likely going to have to address and unravel every major belief that was imparted to you as a Black woman. Black American women specifically. We were not trained how to trust men. We were not trained how to value and respect men. We were not trained how to value and respect ourselves barely. We were definitely not trained to the value of submission and cooperation. We were not trained the value of marriage. We equated marriage or relationship with oppression or with abuse. Some of us maybe even saw some of that, so we're traumatized. And then, like I said, just there's no positive messages coming from mainstream culture as it relates to Black American women and Black love that reflect healthy long-term relationships. My thing is, if you grew up in Black America as a Black woman, in order to find any long-lasting love, you're likely going to have to actively address the things that you were taught. Period. And discuss it. Like, you're likely going to have to do that. I found that that's what I've had to do. In my own journey, even in my own marriage, there's constantly ideas I have to address and be like, oh, that's not healthy. That's not of God. That's not conducive of a happy marriage. Things that you wouldn't even consider. Things that you wouldn't even consider. You know what I mean? So, y'all, that's what I have for now. We've done a lot. I've been in here almost 2.5 hours. It's been a long one. If you guys like what's going on here, you already know the drill. Like, share, subscribe. Show some love on Cash App, Super Chat, Venmo. Y'all know the grill. And yeah, I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up because I'm getting tired and hungry, and I still need to go to the gym. So, like I said, there's more to cover off. But I think we went over a lot today, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts. For those of you guys who are catching the replay gang, yeah, feel free to do so. Leave your thoughts, comments down in the comment section. Y'all let me know what you think. Shout out to you also. I think some of you guys said you sent me some examples. You were sending me some examples in like email or X or whatever. So I'm going to check that out. And we will likely continue this conversation because this conversation is really ongoing. But yeah, if you guys are on the replay gang, let me know what you think about this particular post. She has like a part 2, 3 or whatever. So if you guys want me to review it, I can. Yeah, like I said, just like it if you want to see it. Hype it if you want. Show some love on the Cash App. You already know the whole spiel. But just let me know if you guys think it would be worth to follow up with her second and third part breakdown of the state of dating Black men. Let me know if you guys feel like that's even worth going over, because it's a whole. The next one she had is the sociology of where all the successful Black men are. So it's supposedly a numbers-driven look at education, income, and the modern Black marriage market. So it's supposed to be looking at the numbers around Black marriage, love, and how that it essentially impacts Black love. So y'all let me know if you guys want to continue this conversation and look at some of these other ideas that have gotten some traction. And yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts. Thank you for listening. Thank you for streaming in. Like, share, subscribe. Show some love on Super Chat, Cash App, Venmo, all that jazz. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys, if you've gotten this far. And we'll talk later, okay? Bye.